OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
All right, very welcome along this Wednesday morning. We've got big breaking news this morning, and it is that, as expected, Mauricio Pochettino was sacked late last night after yesterday's story started to rumble on. But Jose Mourinho has been confirmed this morning as the new manager of Spurs. It is a whirlwind 24 hours. Spurs have seized back the back pages, and they are now the only story in town for at least 24 hours until football starts. What the hell happened here, Owen?
This is unbelievably decisive. This is quick action from Daniel Levy, and something I really just can't think of any football club doing. What tends to happen is that the discontent bubbles for a while and the sacking eventually happens, and that was all well and good. But actually turning this around, and in the space of basically 12 hours, a statement has been issued online to say that Jose Mourinho has been appointed as Tottenham Hotspur manager. This is something that they've clearly been working on for quite some time, and it's interesting actually looking back on some of the things that Jose Mourinho has been saying over the past couple of months, because I'm sure he knew that there was a possibility that perhaps a job in London might be coming up for himself, and like maybe not, maybe it was only something in the last.
Yeah, it was the Arsenal job.
Well,
that was the one that people were talking about, going, "Oh, this would be terrible for Arsenal." But actually,
I'm not sure about that. Like just looking back, there were headlines from early October linking Jose Mourinho to Tottenham Hotspur. Yeah, for sure. You look back at some of the stuff he said on Sky Sports.
But it didn't seem realistic. At that point, it didn't seem realistic that Spurs...
It did seem realistic that Pochettino would go.
Well, not that Spurs were going to sack him. He got into the Champions League final.
When I saw the news last night, I was like, okay, that is... I didn't quite think it was a disgrace. I thought it was ruthless.
Do you remember how outrageous it was and how big an achievement it was for Harry Redknapp to get Spurs into the Champions League?
Yes.
Do you remember that? It was like, this is the biggest thing that's ever happened. Mauricio Pochettino made that happen as a matter of course, and just reached the Champions League final. So I would say it's a big shock that they've got rid of him. And it's like...
But it's not in the context of what's happened this morning. These two things are linked. This is the point here, that Daniel Levy sacked Mauricio Pochettino and appointed Jose Mourinho. That is all one decision. He didn't sack Mauricio Pochettino and say, who can I get? Oh, wait.
No, absolutely.
The highest profile manager in the history of our football club can now be appointed. The reason why he sacked Mauricio Pochettino, in my opinion, is that Jose Mourinho was available and he'd already signed a deal in principle with Jose Mourinho, and he wanted Jose. That makes sense to me, and having seen the developments of this morning, it makes sense. Now, there will be plenty of people who disagree.
When you say it makes sense to you...
Well, okay, then we get into the footballing.
You understand the mechanics of it as opposed to it actually making any sense, because it don't make no sense.
I'm not sure. We're going to have John in a moment, who's a big fan of disappointments, and I'm not going to lie, we'll get him in a sec.
He's our resident Spurs fan, by the way, so
yeah.
This means something.
I'm starting to come around to John's way of thinking. We'll get him in. It's you're going to be faced with a 2 versus 1 again this morning, Joe. Perhaps I'm starting to come around to this idea that Jose Mourinho may actually be a good appointment for Tottenham Hotspur. Some people are saying, like, why are they doing this now? What's with the timing?
Well,
because there's a transfer window coming around the corner. You want to give them some sort of renewed energy. As I say, this is the most high-profile manager that Tottenham Hotspur have ever had. If Jose Mourinho isn't going to turn on the charm and keep Christian Eriksen and Harry Kane and Dele Alli and put smiles on their faces, then nobody else will. Now, those smiles will be wiped off their faces in a couple of years.
In a couple of months. Months.
Not sure about that. Not sure about that.
Where's the evidence for that? Like, the last club job was no good. It didn't work.
At what point did it start to not work, though?
Well,
he's the only Manchester United manager who's managed to finish second since Alex Ferguson.
Who else was in the league that year that was playing well? Was it not one of those random years where everybody's a down year?
I know I'm basically just spoken like Jose Mourinho's PR man there, but I do think that second place finish, and when he holds it up, of course, you know, that the whole some of the things that he says is complete nonsense, but the second place thing I think is actually something that you're like, fair enough, you can see the logic behind his arguments, and
it's Man United.
It's illustrated. I know, but it's Manchester City. This new Manchester City is nothing like Manchester United have ever had to come up with. But like, getting back to the point, I just think that is evidence. The Manchester United thing is more evidence of how it takes time for something to go sour. John Duggan is with us in studio, big Jose Mourinho fan.
I don't know about big Jose Mourinho fan, but I'm not as negative about good morning about this as everybody else seems to be on Twitter last night, because on the 25th of September on offtheball.com we wrote about this. We said that Jose Mourinho could be the next Tottenham Hotspur manager.
There's your piece there. Could Jose Mourinho be the next Tottenham Hotspur manager?
The 25th of September. We're now on the 19th of November, 20th of November?
Yeah.
20th.
Yeah.
What else can you make happen? What else can you manifest destiny?
12 profitable years out of 18 at Cheltenham, another profitable year next March, golf tips on off the ball every Thursday. All these things can happen. We just need to make them happen, like Jose Mourinho going to Spurs this morning.
So you believe in the law of attraction?
I believe in my gut. Like, first of all, I feel very grateful for Mauricio Pochettino, giving me some of the best days of my life. Like Ajax, the Champions League semi-final, Lucas Moura putting the ball in the last kick of the game. It was just one of the most amazing experiences as a sports fan. I was at the Old White Hart Lane in 2016 when Tottenham beat the proverbials out of Manchester City, Guardiola's first defeat in England. Tottenham were incredible that day, and they didn't even have Harry Kane in the team. And I think it probably symbolises that it's just reached the end of the road with Pochettino. The way he plays football, his philosophy of huge physical press, running, and when you're not replenishing the squad, which Tottenham haven't been doing.
Yeah, so I don't think the style of football reached the end of the road because it's very effective for Liverpool. I think that they didn't back him in the transfer market.
Especially in 2018. Like Liverpool were signing Alisson and Van Dijk and all these kind of players 2018 summer. Spurs didn't sign anybody. They've got a wage bill, probably 100 million less than the big clubs. Eventually, the kind of the drawbridge begins to creak, and then like the wood kind of rots, and then it falls into the sea. And that is not Pochettino's fault. Tottenham didn't replenish as an elite club should do, and maybe the stadium is an excuse for that. But like Levy and Mourinho and the meeting of money, that to me is
spending 12 quid to sack your manager, or 12 million quid, I should say, to sack your manager.
And he's always wanted them, apparently, Levy. But the meeting of Mourinho, Levy, and money is an equation that I'm looking forward to seeing the result of.
Yeah, because Mourinho needs money to manage. We know that he wants multiple. He wants two players in every position, and then he gets unhappy with players he has bought very quickly and decides, no, you're not going to be part of my team. And his judgment has not been great with a load of these players in recent seasons. But anyway, where is the suggestion that Daniel Levy is going to give the money to Jose Mourinho that he needs to make this work? Because there's been no track record of that money being made available to any manager.
This summer they made money available. This summer they spent money. Now, granted, it ended with Paulo Dybala not coming to the club, and by all accounts,
88 million this year, right?
But like just to finish that point, by all accounts, that was something that actually got to Mauricio Pochettino. So it's hard to know exactly what this injection of cash means, how big an injection of cash it really was in the context of.
And remember Pochettino saying they should call me head coach, not manager, because I'm not in charge, I'm not making the decisions.
Now, Pochettino was doing a lot of that. Even back to a Leicester game a couple of years ago, he was undermining the chairman a bit. I don't think Daniel Levy likes that kind of.
Sure, he doesn't.
He doesn't like that. But Daniel Levy is, I think, regards himself as one of the most successful businessmen in world football, and he probably, as a businessman and a profit man, he probably is. The only thing I think that might change the dynamic is that Spurs have reached a real crossroads now. Do they want Harry Kane to stay at their club? Do they want him to be an elite club? Do they want to be in the Champions League every year? And the only thing that might change the thing is that Daniel Levy for years has always wanted Mourinho at his club, and maybe Daniel Levy's ego doesn't feel under threat because this is his guy, and his ego will say, you know what, well, I've got my guy now, and now my ego can tell me that actually I want to spend a bit more money. And like, it's not that they're lacking money. Joe Lewis, the ultimate owner of Tottenham, is like a billionaire. So it's not like they don't have the money. They have the money, but they've been always running very, very successfully as a profit enterprise. They're probably the most profitable club. I think they were the most profitable club in the last figures that I saw in the Premier League.
A lot of billionaires made it by not giving their money away.
That's why we're not billionaires. That's why we're sitting here and off the ball.
By making good business decisions and not flashing the cash on a vanity project.
Well, that's why you have the petrodollars of Manchester City. It is a vanity project. And it is a different situation to Tottenham.
Yeah, so that's the thing. And I'm not sure if Joe Lewis is going to suddenly decide that he wants to spend 300 million to catch up with everybody else. But look, maybe the stadium gives them enough.
Well, then you become Arsenal. That's the choice.
Well, exactly. But maybe every year in the Champions League is exactly what Spurs want, and that's exactly what Daniel Levy wants, and that's maybe that's what Mourinho's been brought in to do, as opposed to actually trying to mount a title challenge.
There's a couple of things here. Mourinho has been always a better underdog manager than he's been a manager of clubs with massive reputations and massive expectations. So Porto, underdog manager, wins Europa League, Champions League. I know it's a long time ago, but he went and he did it with Inter. Inter Milan hadn't won a Champions League since the 60s. Chelsea, the first time around, hadn't won a title in 50 years. I know he had He like effectively could buy anybody he wanted. But they also played great football back then.
They
Drogba,
did, yeah.
Robin.
Yeah.
Now, it is a very long time ago. But what would Manchester United fans give for second place in the table right now, which he brought them to? He won a Europa League. He wins things. Whatever you hate his style or you hate what he's about, he wins things. And Tottenham did not win anything under Pochettino. They haven't won a trophy. They've won a measly League Cup. They won 2 League Cups in the last 20 years. The Worthless Cup, the Worthington, whatever it's called these days.
He was in the Champions League final 5 months ago.
I know. But from a perspective of I'm just thinking of trophies without thinking about anything else about Pochettino. Pochettino's been the most successful manager since Bill Nicholson at Tottenham. Even more successful, I would argue, than Keith Birkinshaw, who won trophies, who won UEFA Cup, who won 2 FA Cups. Pochettino's been more successful because football now is a global game. Champions League final, as you say, second finish in the league since best in '63. And like there was about 10 years ago, I was going absolutely bananas down a Camden Street, freaking out, ringing my nephews and my niece and my brother-in-law, who are all Spurs fans, when Peter Crouch scored at Manchester City to put us in.
I was just saying, like, it was one of the biggest things, and that was Harry Redknapp, right?
Yeah.
And Pochettino made that a matter of course.
A matter of habit. And something you would take for granted. Like I went to see Tottenham play AC Milan, the last 16 in the Champions League, probably must have been 8 or 9 years ago. And that even hearing the Champions League music at White Hart Lane was such a huge thing. And that's something that Pochettino made regular and punching above, totally punching above.
Are you making the case that that's why they should have kept Pochettino?
Pochettino should have stayed. They should have made it.
I don't know. I think they were way past that point of getting back to that level again.
3 months of bad stuff happening since they were in this season, and it's the start of June. We're in November since they were in the Champions League final. Like, he signed a new 5-year deal in May 2018. So it is a very expensive way of getting rid of an asset that at that time in May 2018 you could have sold to Man United for 20-25 million. Like, they were willing to pay massive compensation to get him.
But it didn't seem like he would lose the dressing room in 2018. It didn't seem that it actually seemed that would be the last thing possible.
And those stories coming out though, but like you've got to wonder who benefits from those stories coming out. Daniel Levy benefits from those stories coming out. It was irreparable damage done. I think it's your point that actually Daniel Levy fell in love with the idea of Jose Mourinho, became intoxicated by that whole thing at some point along the way, and has now made a decision that is not in keeping with his track record at all. His track record is pragmatic,
parsimonious.
Yeah, like this is the opposite of that, because he's going to have to give Mourinho loads of money. Mourinho's not coming in here and saying...
But he's no other choice, Daniel Levy. Otherwise, it's going to be Arsenal. It's going to be 6th in the league forever. And that's where Tottenham were. And now Levy's been there. It's been since 2001. He should know. He's extremely intelligent. He's got a first in land economy from Cambridge. He should know that this is now the crossroads of Tottenham. And if Mourinho's the guy, he's got to give him the money. So and we'll know very quickly whether he's given the money or not.
But your point is separate to the point about whether or not it's correct to sack Mauricio Pochettino at the moment. Okay, it's not in keeping. It's not in keeping with Daniel Levy's philosophy on how to spend money, paying 12 million quid to sack a manager.
This
doesn't mean it's the wrong thing to do.
I'm
talking about the sacking of Pochettino. Just because perhaps he wants to leak those stories.
Hang on, has he not earned the right?
Doesn't mean that he hasn't lost the dressing room.
All the points we just made, like it being absolutely a dramatic thing that this club would ever qualify for the Champions League. Mauricio Pochettino turned that into...
Expectations change.
They do change on the back of this guy's genius. When you weren't investing in the squad, he brought them to a Champions League final. Like, he turned mediocre players into... Okay, I don't really care about how often you play for England, but into the backbone of an England team that ends up doing essentially, finally, quite well at a major tournament. Backbone by his players, who all learned how to become men under Pochettino. And if you have a bad 3 or 4 months, you're then entitled to say, okay, I'm going to take a step back here and I'm going to fix this. Because I'm Mauricio Pochettino. I'm a brilliant manager. I can do this.
If you can fix it. But the situation seems irreparable.
Do you need the funds to fix it? And he doesn't have the funds
irreparable
to fix it.
Because these stories are being spun to justify the decision. The truth of, and that's all going to come out now and then, this was absolutely... But all they had to do was win 2 or 3 games after the international break and suddenly everything's fine again. Because that's how football works. Every crisis is an absolutely massive crisis when it's written down in black and white, when the harsh things people say. But there's fights in training grounds all the time. And if you have a good, strong manager, which Pochettino clearly was, you can navigate through this. He just didn't get a chance. I don't know. I think Spurs are going to regret this, especially if Man United have many balls and go and decide, right, look, all that great stuff that we were saying about you, Ole Gunnar, I'm sorry about that. This guy's our guy.
You see, that's a separate point. I would agree with that. I would say that of the available managers now in world football, Mauricio Pochettino is probably the number one candidate. I think if you're Bayern Munich looking for a manager, you're looking at Mauricio Pochettino. I think if you're any club looking for a manager, he is the guy you want. That doesn't necessarily mean, though, that keeping him at Tottenham Hotspur was the correct thing to do. I can see how it's a harsh thing. I can see how football is such a thing that it can change very quickly if he gets a couple of good results after the international break. But I just think that the evidence that has been leaked, granted, and perhaps spun, would suggest that this wasn't something that could have been turned around. This was something that was not just based on Mauricio Pochettino's genius as a manager. It was also based on this group of players that he had bonded so tightly together that they had got not far beyond the sum of their parts, but it definitely got the sum of their parts together. He was going to lose those players, but he'd certainly lost the bond that existed between those players because it had worn thin. Not a great kind of contradiction about all of this.
Did it wear thin because they weren't getting paid enough? Did it wear thin because they weren't allowed to join Real Madrid when they wanted to? Like, why did it wear thin?
It wore thin, I think, because they didn't replenish the squad enough 2 years ago. Like, Tottenham didn't lose a game at home at Hard Lane that last season, 2016-17. They were amazing that season, but they didn't replenish the squad. And I think, remember Arsenal reached the Champions League final 2006? Were they at their best that season? No, they weren't. They were probably a couple of years beyond it. And I think Tottenham this year were a couple of years beyond it. And because the club has always been run extremely tightly as a business, and Tottenham actually were in an inflated position because of Pochettino. They were in an inflated position relative to their wage structure, relative to the amount of money they spend on players. Harry Kane is a kind of Harry Winks. These are guys who come through academies. Like Harry Kane was almost Dele Alli from Milton Keynes. These weren't signed for 100 millions. The Bale was the last time that really Spurs did a huge bit of business in the transfer market. So Levy, it's all about Levy changing because he's got his eyes are fluttering at Jose Mourinho. Levy will have to be un-Daniel Levy-like for things to change at Tottenham and for Mourinho to have a chance. Otherwise, it will become an Arsenal situation. I would worry, by the way, for Troy Parrott at Tottenham, with the way Mourinho has never been about the kids, has he?
Yeah, exactly. Like, he claims he did really good stuff with Rashford and really helped his game.
No, he shattered Rashford's confidence.
I thought so too. Like, certainly that's the way spin
Look at the way
works.
Rashford's playing now.
I think Jose Mourinho could still be a good manager. I'm just not sure that this is the right situation for him right now. Unless there is absolutely tons of money coming and Daniel Levy's breaking the habit of a lifetime. Just on Parrott, because there's a piece in the Examiner today.
Yeah, Liam Brady, Liam
Brady saying that a January loan move could actually be the best thing for him. This might now hasten that.
Yeah, it might.
And maybe that's his chance to go. And I don't know if a Premier League team comes in from, it's unlikely at this stage, but certainly a run in the Championship would be great for him, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Played well last night as the under-21s.
Also, he's got physical presence.
Hammered Sweden.
Yeah, physical presence is what Troy Parrott has. And from what I know about him, he's just a poacher. He just scores goals. A bit like Harry Kane, actually. Just finds a way to get the ball in the net. I just hope wherever he goes, if he does go, that it's somewhere that, you know, there's a good feeder system with Tottenham. Like Pochettino really had a lot of faith in him, but Pochettino, that was his hallmark. It was like the players like Winks, and he polished Moussa Sissoko into a footballer, you know. So he did great things, but I think the die was cast a couple of years ago. I think the Champions League run did kind of paper over a lot of the cracks, which with the structural way the club is run, and the club needs to be run a bit differently. Lovely business. I've been to the new stadium. It's amazing. I'm so, you know, I'm generally on a happy person to be a Tottenham fan, although I do go on Twitter and rant about it. But generally, I'm quite a happy person to be a Spurs fan because I know how dire it was in the 90s and that kind of thing.
It's interesting you say that, John. Like, I think you're right. And you look at some of Pochettino's pre-match press conferences last year. I think it was before the second leg against Ajax, when he starts kind of making sounds about how he'll retire if they win the Champions League or how he'll take some time off. Like, they're not the sounds of a manager who's on the crest of a wave, on the verge of doing something more special than any Tottenham Hotspur manager has ever done before. I think that is the definition of papering over the cracks. That it would have been interesting to see what would have happened last season had that Champions League run not happened, had this decision perhaps...
But he would have been gone sooner.
Yeah, it would have had to be taken in the summer perhaps.
But as Ger would probably argue, and you can see the very good argument, that he definitely needs as much time as he wants and as much money as he wants to rebuild again, but he didn't get that. And then the other side of the argument, which I can also see, is that he is a Bielsa-style manager, that there is maybe a shelf life to the way he manages. Like, if Leeds United qualified for the Premier League, reached the Premier League, and a benefactor was in there to give them loads of money, that's the kind of club I would see Pochettino at, building something big at Leeds United. Maybe not even Manchester United.
Connor Joyce says, have you seen Spurs play this season, Ger? They've been woeful. They're 14th. Pochettino has been ratty since the Champions League final last year. Mourinho can do something with this Spurs squad. Well, we're going to see, because his first game is at West Ham this weekend.
Of all teams.
Yeah.
Can I just make one point on that?
Nolan says, bad news for Troy Parrott. Keep your comments rolling in.
The shelf life thing. It's interesting. Now, granted, I'm coming around to the idea.
Ferguson would said about shelf life.
Yeah, but what other top-class manager in the world right now is renowned for having a shelf life? Jose Mourinho. This thing is going to go in a similar manner to Mauricio Pochettino eventually, with the players getting fed up with him. I just think that there is enough of I think Levy's smart enough to know that there is also a 2-year bounce before the shelf life starts to become a bit of an issue. Maybe a 1-season bounce in some respects. So, I don't know, but I think with that, I think it does come from a big punch at the start. Like you call, like the rotting that perhaps happens after a period of time under Mauricio Pochettino. Like, Pochettino has been prone to sulk. He's been in dour form, as that texter commented, since the Champions League final. Jose Mourinho is also known to sulk. I think these two men are closer in personality than a lot of people think.
Mourinho and Pochettino?
Yeah.
I'd say there's no doubt that at some point along the way, Jose Mourinho's going to lose that dressing room, because that's how that works. Right, let's bring you through the newspapers. Or we do our coming up first? We do the newspapers first. Whichever you want there, lads. Okay, we'll do the 2 quick newspaper headlines for you. Back page of the Irish Independent. McCarthy's Ireland get ready for date with Slovakia. This is the news that came through yesterday. Obviously, after Wales winning last night with their 2-0 victory, has meant that happened. And then Mourinho shows interest in Spurs' role after Pochettino gets a sack. All the papers are behind the news this morning. The Guardian has a picture of Mauricio Pochettino on the back. If only they'd gambled and gone with the pictures of Mourinho, who is on the back of loads of those newspapers. Okay, let's get to Daniel Harris, who joins us this morning to give us his reaction. What's your take on this, Daniel, as somebody who knows Jose Mourinho very well from his time at Manchester United and the machinations and the tectonic plates of the dressing room? What the hell happened here? And is he the right man for this Spurs team right now?
Someone needs some medical attention. I'm absolutely staggered that anyone thought this behaviour would be a good idea. I can understand in some ways why they've got rid of Pochettino. In other ways, I think it's the most ludicrous thing that anyone's ever done. And I'll explain why. If things are too far gone with Pochettino and they feel that either there's a problem with the players or there's a problem with the board, I guess those two things are permanent. Now, whether there should be a problem with the players and whether there should be a problem with the board and whose fault that is part of a debate as to whether or not Pochettino should have been fired. But getting rid of Pochettino, who's done such a great job at Spurs, is ridiculous, because the reason why they are where they are and why their standards have gone up is because of him. And for them to basically not back him financially until last summer, him to do brilliantly and them to fire him at the first sign of on-pitch trouble doesn't make a lot of sense. And then to replace him with yesterday's man, Mourinho, nothing that we've seen from Mourinho in his last 2 jobs has suggested he's ever going to learn and he's ever going to change. And nothing has suggested that the way that he manages players is going to be modified according to the way that things have changed. And now that he doesn't have this insane coterie of focused winners like he had at Inter and like he had at Chelsea. So also the other thing that Mourinho always needs is money. And Levy has very particularly not given Pochettino money. So if he gives it to Mourinho, then the question would be, why didn't you give it to Pochettino? And if he doesn't, then it's just setting himself up for more aggravation.
Well, Owen.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. It's like yesterday's man, there's probably some truth to that. But like, do you subscribe to the theory at all, Daniel, that Jose in his second season does provide a bounce, that Levy does analyse what has gone before in a person's career, should probably see these problems coming, but also can see the benefits that he can bring for a very short amount of time, the sort of perhaps false energy that he brings to a dressing room at the start, but it's energy nonetheless. It's a different, perhaps, mood that Pochettino's been preaching at a very important juncture. It's before a transfer window. Every transfer window is going to be important now for the foreseeable future for Tottenham Hotspur, especially when it comes to those players who are potentially on the way out.
Yeah, I mean, Spurs might end up with a League Cup or a Europa League in the first season or two, and if that's what they want, then fair enough. I think that one of the problems they might find, and I've been previously told that the players between them who know that they could be earning more money and playing for better clubs, had agreed that they would all stay as long as Pochettino stayed. Kane in particular is good mates with Pochettino. I'm not certain that that Spurs will be able to persuade those players to stay on Spurs wages now that Pochettino has gone. And Mourinho doesn't have that. He's not an emollient individual. And so the kind of things that he demands of players are not necessarily the kind of things that players want to do. And whether or not he can get the best out of that squad, or whether the squad will even want to hang around to find out, remains to be seen at best. So if Spurs' target is top 4, then I think that is probably out of reach this season. So perhaps they might manage that next season, but perhaps not. And perhaps they might win some minor trophies, which are, as someone whose team won minor trophies under Mourinho, I enjoyed those very much. But that's not what Spurs are trying to do. They want a manager to build something. They're trying to build something, and nothing in Mourinho's, not even recent history, nothing in Mourinho's history as a manager suggests that he will build something. It suggests he'll turn up for a bit, there'll be some success, and then he'll leave, usually a significant mess. That, to me, is not the way that modern football is going, and not what Spurs need. Spurs need focused, happy Pochettino. And the most sensible way out of this situation would have been for Daniel Levy to appreciate that the main man at the club was not him, but Pochettino. And the timing of this departure also seems kind of strange, in that if things were too far gone, and that was known to be the case, then they would have fired Pochettino at the beginning of the international window, because then Mourinho could have come in and he would have had a week and a half, 2 weeks, whatever it was, with some players gone, but other players around to get his feet under the table, to get settled, to start meeting everyone. The fact that it's happened right at the end of the international window suggests a little bit like something has happened. And if something has happened, then to me, Daniel Levy's most important job as Tottenham, whatever he is, Tottenham kisser up to Joe Lewis, well, I'm not sure what the official title is, but Daniel Levy's most important job was keeping Maurizio Pochettino happy, because Maurizio Pochettino was Spurs' biggest asset. And what we've seen from him is that he has earned the credit to be able to stay, because what you see with football teams is, Fergie always used to say this, the cycle of a football team is roughly 4 seasons. And after that, you need to start refreshing things. And Pochettino needs to start refreshing things. He started refreshing things in the summer. And as far as I can see, he's Tottenham's best manager, who's had Tottenham's best team since David Pleat's team in 1987. He has earned the right to be the person who gets to refresh that. Now, he might have needed a talking to, and he might have needed to be told to shut up complaining in public. But if during the previous 4 seasons, Levy had respected his achievements properly, then there would never have been that problem. It may be that Pochettino had mentally checked out of the job and intended to leave in the summer, in which case, given where Spurs are, it probably did make sense to fire him now. But to fire him now and bring in Mourinho makes no sense, because in a lot of ways, Mourinho is not only the opposite of what Pochettino is, he's the opposite of what Tottenham need.
Well, Mauricio Pochettino's been sulking for the past few months, ever since the Champions League final. You talk about Daniel Levy perhaps looking to find the smiling, happy Pochettino once again. Like, he's given himself a good few months. He's given himself a whole summer off. I'm sure there are tons of conversations that have happened. I'm sure you're right that something has happened over the last couple of days. But I'm also sure that Daniel Levy has said to himself, I can't get that smiling, happy Pochettino back on side, given the resources that I feel I have at my disposal. Now, in terms of that point you make at the end about them being the exact opposites, Jose Mourinho is also prone to sulk a bit. I'm not sure are they actually that different when it comes to things. I think they also have a style of play that can grind players down at times. I think that's what happened here with Mauricio Pochettino. It's kind of born thin at a point. That tends to happen with Jose Mourinho as well. Granted, I've just backed myself into a corner here where I'm making the case against Jose Mourinho, but it's more on your own last point about it, how different they really are. And then also kind of challenging you on that point about the smiling, happy Mauricio Pochettino. I just think Daniel Levy thought the goose was cooked. There's no way we're getting this great, charismatic character back and also maintaining the players that we have in our dressing room.
That might be true, but if you can't keep Mauricio Pochettino happy, what in the world makes you think that you'll be able to keep Jose Mourinho happy? Like, there's no rationale that suggests that, unless you give Mourinho all the things that you denied Pochettino that Pochettino had earned. Look, like, Mourinho might turn up and make me look stupid. Like, if original Chelsea Inter Mourinho turns up, he was one of the greatest managers of all time, and only an idiot would fail to recognise that was so. He did a phenomenal job at Inter, particularly. But Chelsea had all the advantages. Chelsea were finished fourth when he turned up. He had a ludicrous amount of money, and what he did at Chelsea was he shaped a team that was still winning things 5, 6, 7 years after he left them. Like, that's amazing. He instilled in them particular values of professionalism and of competing that were amazing. But the players that he had there were very particular types of players. He had absolutely driven, maniacal, focused, lunatic winners. He had Terry, Lampard, Drogba, Cech. I don't think that it's quite possible that we'll never see a squad like that in English football again, of those kinds of personalities. And Mourinho hasn't really shown an ability to agitate and motivate the different kinds of personalities that you're more likely to find in a dressing room. And at Tottenham, that's what he's going to find. Like, maybe he'll do really well with Harry Kane and Dele Alli, but will that necessarily work with Tanguy and Ndombele and Giovanni Lo Celso? We don't know. And there's nothing to suggest that Spurs have just that particular kind, that they're dominated by that particular kind of personality. And there's nothing to suggest that Mourinho has changed, because, I mean, maybe I'm biased, but I thought that when Mourinho got the United job, if he was unable to change for that, then he was never going to change, because that was the job he hankered after for years. And if he failed at it, he was very unlikely to ever get a job of similar magnitude. And he could not do anything. He could not manage to change himself. And he never particularly tried. He gave the first press conference where he basically called out Wayne Rooney for not being any good in midfield. And you thought, okay. Then he went and bought 4 players in the first summer that sort of suggested that he was trying to sign players to back himself into a corner, such that he would have to play a different kind of football. And he couldn't do it. So then he went out and bought Nemanja Matic and Romelu Lukaku and tried to play Mourinho type of football, but without Mourinho type of players. And he couldn't do that either. In the meantime, he managed to force them to a couple of trophies and to second place in the league, but a very distant second place. But nothing that we saw was anything different to what we saw from the Mourinho towards the end at Real Madrid and the Mourinho in the second spell at Chelsea. He was unable to change. And although drama, cinema, literature are basically predicated on change, you have these characters and then they go on a journey and at the end they emerge different people, it's probably more comparable to what we see from usually in a series. The characters do not change, because that is more akin to real life. People do not change. They become modified versions of themselves, but we are who we are. And nothing about Mourinho in particular, who has very strong characteristics and is very confident in the strength and those characteristics, suggests that he's able to do anything different. And I tell you what, I don't buy that Mourinho football is outdated. People like to talk about that, and I think that is nonsense. If you gave him his first Chelsea team with Terry and Carvalho and Lampard and Makelele and Essien and Drogba and Robben and Duff and Cech, you'd see a team that if they didn't win the league, they'd come very, very close to winning the league, because that is a brilliant team that would be brilliant in any generation of football. But if you take those players away from him, his ability to improvise, to assess the circumstances that he finds himself in, and to gel different kinds of players and different personalities into different systems, like nothing that we've seen from him over the last 5 years suggests that is something he's going to do.
And to sign those players again, to rediscover them. Look, I actually feel like the Mourinho and Spurs element to this is going to end up being the B storyline. And the A storyline is where Mauricio Pochettino ends up, because as I was saying a little bit earlier on, when Pochettino signed his new deal, many clubs around the world would have paid whatever the compensation Daniel Levy wanted to get him out of there, one of whom, you suspect, would have been Manchester United. Surely Manchester United this morning are having a long, long conversation about where exactly they are and how this manager has suddenly become available. He is one of the best managers in world football at the moment. He is perfect for the type of project they are currently in the midst of. He has the force of personality to withstand whatever is required to do that job. He plays great football. He's well connected. He speaks many different languages. He's exactly the type of manager you would want if you were the owners or the people charged with running Man United. Surely the person who's most at risk now, because of what's happened, must be Ole Gunnar Solskjaer.
Perhaps. I mean, I think that things have improved for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer lately. I mean, I was told that Pochettino was going to come to United last summer, and he thought he was coming to United last summer. And then Solskjaer went on that unusually brilliant run when he took over, and obviously plans then changed. I would be surprised if United pulled the trigger now, and I would be surprised if they did. If things went bad over the next 2 months, then yeah, you would expect to see Pochettino in as soon as possible, because another terrible run would suggest that Solskjaer is not the man for the job. But what we've seen over the last, United have won 5 of the last 7. They've started playing some good football, and they've got their players back. And the combination of those factors suggests that if you wanted to have faith in Solskjaer, it wouldn't be hard to find a reason to have that faith. I suppose what they could do is they could make Solskjaer director of football, because the work that he's done suggests that that is a job for which he is suited, in that he seems to have a good idea of who the good players are and who the not good players are, and perhaps less of an idea about how to coach the team and how to get the team playing in a particular way in all kinds of circumstances. But I think that personally, I'm reserving judgment on Solskjaer, even though I'm suspicious. I'm reserving judgment because in the first part of the season, he was missing so many of his first team players that I think any manager would struggle to get results in that circumstance. And when he's had his players available, United have actually played pretty well. So he is under threat, but I don't think he's under immediate threat. What will happen is that if things don't go well between now and the end of the season, then you would expect him to lose his job, and you'd expect Pochettino to come in, and that would suit United as well, because Pochettino would now be free. But I don't think in the short term Solskjaer's under threat.
Well, the director of football thing is exactly what I was talking about in the office over the last 24, 48 hours when it became clear that this might actually happen. That's the perfect role for Solskjaer, and it's a way of kind of saying, look, we see you as somebody who in the future will have enough experience, maybe in 4 or 5 years after Mauricio Pochettino restores us to our former glory. It could actually work out perfectly, but the trouble is, if you wait until the end of the season, every other chairman in world football is going to be looking at Mauricio Pochettino, because suddenly he is available, he's not going to cost any compensation, and he's excellent.
Maybe, because how many jobs are there in world football that Pochettino would consider a step up or a horizontal step for him now? And how many of those jobs are likely to become available between now and the end of the season? I mean, the obvious one is actually Arsenal. I feel like Unai Emery is in much more danger of losing his job and in much more need of the sack than Pochettino is. And it would be, am I allowed to swear at 8:06 in the morning? It would be one of the greatest fuck yous of all time if Pochettino went to Arsenal. And I think that...
And what a success he would be there.
It's a thought experiment and something I actually think is going to happen. But if the animosity that Arsenal fans feel towards Pochettino, I imagine, is not similar to the animosity that Spurs fans felt for George Graham, and that they feel for Jose Mourinho, and there were obviously those rumours about Mourinho a few weeks ago. And if I were an Arsenal fan, I would be tempted, I would say, by Pochettino.
Yes.
In the same way as a Manchester United fan, I would, if Ole Gunnar Solskjaer got fired, I would in some way be tempted by Brendan Rodgers, even though he's someone of whom I have made sport over the years, and he was Liverpool manager. I can appreciate that Brendan Rodgers absolutely knows something and is a great coach and has done great jobs at Swansea, at Liverpool, and at Leicester.
Yeah.
If I was an Arsenal fan, I would be very, very tempted by Pochettino. And I imagine if I was on the Arsenal board and didn't feel the personal animus towards Tottenham that Arsenal fans feel,
and none of them
I would be thinking very carefully about doing that. And if I was Pochettino and I got offered the Arsenal job, I would be carnally excited.
Yeah. All right, good stuff, Daniel. Thanks for giving us all that this morning. 7 minutes past 8, and if there's any little ears, then we apologise. But I mean, it was true. I was thinking the exact same thing.
Do you want my left arm now? Because I'll give it for Mauricio Pochettino to come to Arsenal.
Here's Martin Lipton on last night's show. We're talking with Bellator fighter James Gallagher next.
I think it's a mistake. I would have stuck with him. I would have given him the chance to buy the players that he felt were needed to be brought in to change things around. I think he's been worried for more than 18 months about the players having basically been run dry by the way he gets them to play. And he wanted to make big changes 2 summers ago, not last summer. It didn't happen for a variety of reasons then, mainly the World Cup, actually. This summer it didn't happen because no one wanted them. And they've ended up with players that they didn't want anymore and players who knew they weren't wanted anymore. And it's all sort of fallen apart pretty rapidly, and that's a great shame. I don't think any Spurs supporter would argue that Pochettino has been an outstanding, or deny that Pochettino has been an outstanding manager. He's taken the club to the heights they dreamed of, in truth, and I never thought I'd see. To see Tottenham in the Champions League final was beyond my wildest expectations. To see them finishing in the top 4 for 4 years running, again, it's never happened in my lifetime.
Yeah.
So that's the measure of what he did. And given, as you say, the budgetary things he has to deal with compared to others, the wages being, as I said, the 6th highest, he overachieved every season. The lowest position was 5th.
Yeah, so more of Martin Lipton goodness wherever you get your podcast, the Go Loud app, or indeed offtheball.com/podcast. Now, James, the Strabanimal Gallagher is with us. That's a mouthful. How are you? Good morning to you.
I'm good, thanks
You got a
very
bit of
much
an
for having
announcement
me
for
on.
us this morning. We've got an exclusive here. What's going on?
Yeah, I'm headlining Bellator again in the Three Arena in Dublin in February 22nd against Cal Eleanor. So it is an English lad who was supposed to headline against the last time, but he had to withdraw with medical problems. So this time I get to go back and give what I was going to give the last time.
They call him Cal Pacino. That's a good nickname.
He's in The Irishman, I think.
Yeah, the English gangster he's calling himself. That's what he's going on about. But
Is he any good?
yeah, he's a very good fighter. So he is. I have a tough contest coming up against me, and I'm going to be ready for it. Do you know what I mean? I know what it is he's going to bring to the table, and he's an excellent fighter. Don't underestimate him at all. And I just have to put in the work and show up at my best, and I feel that there's no one in the world can beat me when I do that. So that's just my mindset that I have, and that's the mindset that I'm going in there with, and I'm going in there to take him out.
What exactly happened last time with him pulling out? Like, how late in the day was it again?
It was about 7 days, I think, out. Maybe it's 10 to about 7 days. I'm not too sure. It was just before fight week anyway, before the final weight cut and stuff, and he pulled out because he said that the medics seen something on his brain scan.
All right.
But it was an old brain scan. So then when they went and he got like different medicals or different brain surgeons to look at it and reassess him, then he got cleared 2 days before the fight. So there was actually nothing wrong.
But he had lost 5 days training, or
They
had already found a replacement?
They already had their replacement. So it was just strange to me though that one doctor is telling you that you can't fight, you're never going to fight again, you're retired, because the safety of MMA is absolutely brilliant. So it is, they take no risks, there's nothing. So if they see anything at all, you're out. Do you know what I mean? They don't take that any kind of risk, because the safety requirements are heavy. So it is the medicals that we have to go through are like brain scans, MRIs, eyes, everything is, there's nothing left unturned. Do you know what I mean? So it's good for a fighter like myself that I know every time I go in there, you know the risks involved, but you know you're in the safest environment possible. Do you know what I mean? If you're going to do anything, it's the safest environment. So it's good for the likes of myself to hear that the medics are pulling people on this, because if I was in that position, I would like to be pulled. Do you know what I mean? Because it's your life. Do you know what I'm saying? So one guy said that he was never going to fight again, ever, retired, like from fighting. As a young man, do you know what I mean, coming up, chasing his dreams, that's the most devastating thing. That's devastating, do you know what I mean? I wouldn't wish that, even though it was an opponent, I wouldn't wish that on anyone. And so then one doctor said he couldn't fight, he has to retire, and then he got cleared 2 days before the fight by a different one, by like a proper high up one. So I feel like he just said, "You're a man here, mate. I'm not ready for that yet." maybe he just knocked that one back a bit. Do you know what I mean, or something? But anyway, I just hope he shows up in February 22nd, and we'll see what happens.
Before that fight, we were supposed to have you two in studio together, and we were trying to get it organised, and we were told that we weren't allowed to have the two of you in the studio at the same time, because at that stage there was an animosity between you. Is that right? You kind of...
There's no animosity between me and anyone, so it is. I'm chasing my dreams. Do you know what I mean? This fella's coming in here, calling himself the English gangster, trying to take away my dreams in front of my home people in the Three Arena. And I mean, I sell the place out every time I fight there. This is my 3rd headline. Do you know what I mean? So it's a packed out one, and some guy's coming in saying he's going to beat me and take away everything and all this crack. So I have no animosity against him. He's coming in there to try and ruin my dreams, and I'm going to ruin his. Do you know what I mean?
So you're good with each other in the build-up, or is there smack talk? Is it...
It's nothing. He's nothing to me. No, I have no feelings against him. There's someone in my way that I have to take out to get where I want to be, and he's the man that's in my way, unfortunately for him.
When you were talking there about the medical care being great, I was interested in that because obviously after, it was 2 fights ago now, after that, after your victory, you came out immediately afterwards and said that you'd pulled out of the fight 2 weeks beforehand because you were suffering panic attacks in the gym. And I hadn't ever heard anybody really talk in detail, particularly in the aftermath of a fight. Sometimes it's going to be done in a one-on-one interview and that comes out and it's like 5 months out from a fight. But this was the immediate aftermath with all of the adrenaline coming out. You felt like it was the most important thing that you could talk about. And I haven't seen that before, but since then I've seen other MMA fighters talk about the fears that they have. Darren Till was talking about maybe faking an injury ahead of the Madison Square Garden fight because he just had so much fear. Paddy Holohan was in the studio just recently talking about anybody who says they don't have fear before a fight's lying because you're going into fights. Like Andy Lee always talks about, you basically strip naked in front of thousands of people and then you go and have a fight. Yeah. Like, it's not a very natural thing. It's not really what we're about in day-to-day life. So what caused the panic attacks? Why did you decide to talk about them? How are you now?
Yeah, I'm still not really sure what caused it. So I think maybe it's just like a build-up of so much. I'm only turned 23 there last week or last month. And I'm still so young, and I just had a big climb and everything just gone. I'm earning like lots of money now. I'm like lots of fame and everything. But it's not actually any one of those things. Do you know what I'm saying? I just had a heavy workload on, a heavy this. So I feel like it was just a lot of everything. Do you know what I mean? And not enough just me time. Do you get me? So wasn't just going and chilling by myself. It was always work to the next thing, do this, I'm doing that, I'm doing this. And I think it was just down to like a heavy load on my shoulders rather than like any kind of pressure from a fight or any train. No, like there was no specific thing. It was just a heavy overload.
How do you spread that load now?
You just take your time to yourself. Say no. Do you know what I mean? People, I'll go do this. No, I'm not feeling it. Do you know what I mean? I have to relax and I have to take my own time and I have to chill and I just prioritise my schedule better. And now I feel great. Do you know what I mean? And the reason why also I came out and said it is because I felt that way. Do you know what I mean? And people are like, oh, every time I do an interview, every time the people speak to me, like, oh, how are you feeling? Do you know what I mean? And usually I feel like right now I'm going to be the best ever. I feel like I'm going to be a world champion. I feel like in shape. I'm far out from a fight. I'm in shape. I'm in like fit. I'm ready to go right now. I feel like a world champion right now. And I feel like I'm on my way to become the best ever. But then I didn't. At that time, I didn't feel like that. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So, and people are always like, oh, you're all talk. I'm like, nah, you ask me a question, how I feel. I tell you how I feel. Do you know what I mean? So when I'm not feeling good, I'm going to tell you I'm not feeling good.
So just to go back to it, it was 2 weeks out from a fight, was it?
Yeah.
That it was happening?
So it is.
And in the middle of that, you said that your family were basically bringing you to the gym and then having to drag you out of it, like you were getting carried out of the gym.
Nah, it wasn't like that extent. So it wasn't. I was getting them when I was in training. So then I'm like a very professional in how I approach everything about my training. So I felt it wasn't right. So honestly, I just spoke to people straight away, instantly when I wasn't feeling good. And I was training one time and it just overcame and I got like a panic attack.
This is in the gym here in Dublin?
Yeah, so I was and my coach like came and helped me and like sat me down and stuff. And then instantly I just spoke about it to my family and how I was feeling.
Did they want you to pull out of the fight?
No, because I love fighting. It's my job. I'm the happiest. That's when I'm at my happiest, is when I'm fighting. Do you know what I mean? So that was... I couldn't take that away from myself. Do you know what I mean? This is years since I've been 13. This is my dream.
Just explain that too, because I'm not sure everybody understands that. You left school at 15.
Yeah.
So you're from Strabane, but you came down to Dublin to move in with
John. Yeah.
So with John Kavanagh and to become essentially a professional at 15. Obviously, I don't think you can turn pro straight away, can you?
Yeah, well, what was happening I was at school and I wasn't doing good at school, and the teachers were like on me back a little bit, and it was I hated it, so I didn't. My grades weren't good and stuff like this, but I was very dedicated to training. So I was up before school, training after school, training at night.
Training MMA?
Yeah, and jiu-jitsu and just everything, all martial arts. So it could have been karate, it could have been anything, or just going to the gym.
And did you get into that like as a 6 or 7 year old? Was it that young?
Yeah, I got into karate when I was 6 or 7, but I didn't start taking it serious until I was about 12 or 13. And then when I got like 14, 15, then I was like a professional athlete. Do you know what I mean? I was training twice a day, nutrition, like everything. And when I was in school, people weren't like that. They're eating bars of chocolate, giving me grief for eating a packed lunch. I was like, you're like laughing at me for eating a packed lunch. I'm like in shape, shredded, into the gym all the time, like fit, do you know what I mean? Like looking after myself. And
when did the MMA penny drop? When was it that was what you wanted to do? Because you could have been a boxer, you could have done it. Like at that stage, you can go any direction.
Yeah, I was still training MMA when I was doing, like, you know what I mean? I was doing everything. And then I went into school one time on a half day. So I did, because I always just wanted to train, like that's all I wanted to do. I didn't know I could make a living from it. I didn't know if there's money in it. I didn't know if I could survive doing it. But I knew that if I got to like a decent level, I could coach and make money through that. So that was like always a backup plan. So I always asked my parents, I just want to train. That's all I did want to do. I didn't want to compete. I didn't want to do that. I just wanted to train and be in the gym because the people were so good and fun to be around. And the people at school were negative. They were drinking. They were 14, drinking, eating crap, like... They didn't have no ambition in life, and I just wasn't happy. I just didn't like it, and I could see this at a young age, and it was strange to be at a young age and see this kind of thing. And I was asking my parents, like, no, you can't leave school. You're 15, do you know what I mean? It's illegal. And then one of my best friends got kicked out. So it is my kind of buddy that we were knocking around, misbehaving together. And one time I went in then, it was like a half day at Christmas, and the teacher started giving out to me for not doing work, like shouting. I was like, stop being cheeky to me. I'm not being cheeky to you. I don't got my work done, and that's it. Like, do you know what I mean? And I'm not being cheeky to you. No disrespect to you, and like, it's nothing. I just don't got my work done. I was training last night. Don't shout at me, please. Teacher, you should have your work done. You're going to be nothing. You're going to be this. I just grabbed my bag and said to all my friends, I'm never coming back in here, and walked straight out the door. So I did, and they were like...
That was the end of that?
That was the end of that, and I went home to my parents. Like,
and what did they say? Are they like, what are you doing? Get back in there.
Yeah, so it was, and I was like, listen, this is what happened. I said, this teacher who's supposed to be teaching me how to conduct myself in life and how to teach me to be out here in the real world is shouting at me for not having a piece of paper when I was being nice to them. I was like, that's not how I roll. You get respect, you give respect.
So
they're obviously people nice.
They're obviously concerned at that point, as any parent would be for a 15-year-old. What is your future path? Because I mean, we all know the number of people who make it in professional sport is very limited, and those who actually can make a living out of it, and those who can make a living out of it enough to not have to work again, or at least catapult themselves into a coaching position. They must have been terrified.
Yeah. So it is, but. For such a young age of 15, I was like clued in on life. Do you know what I mean? I mightn't have been book smart, I mightn't have been that, but I went to my parents and I was like, listen, I said, I'm not happy at school. Like, it's really draining on me. It's pulling me down. I'm not happy at all. And I was all, I need to get out of here. I said, these people are negative. I says, I can't be around that there. I says, but what I do know is that I want to be in the gym. I said, I know that I can make something out of it. I know I can, and I'm going to be happy. I said, at the end of it, and I says, I'll tell you what. I says, if you see me slacking at training, I said, instantly pull me out and put me back into college, because I can go back into college at 20, I can go back into college at any age. Do you know what I mean? If you have a narrow mindset, you'll be like, oh, you need to study when you're young. It's like you can learn anything at any age. Do you know what I mean? I can go back into college right now and drop everything if I like. So I said to my parents, if you see me slacking or not giving it everything I've got, instantly take me out and put me back into college. Do you know what I mean? I says that's the agreement, because I was so confident in the ability that I had to give this sport everything I've got. And that's what I've done.
So they backed you at that point?
They backed me at that point. They're like, no problem. If it's really... And it wasn't to do with me putting in the work or me going anywhere. It was just to do that I wasn't happy. I wasn't happy in school. Do you know what I mean? And I didn't like that. No, that's not for everyone.
No.
You need school.
And you also need to be able to explain what you've explained as a very lucid 15-year-old. Because a lot of kids would be just like, I hate school and I'm not going back.
Exactly, and that's not how I was, because I didn't mind it. I just didn't like the negative vibe.
So how do you end up living with John Kavanagh?
So before this, I had tech. One day we did this thing where we used to go and learn like a trade, because I wasn't like at a high class or nothing like this. So it was on a Thursday, so I used to just skip it. And my dad used to drive me to Dublin to train every Thursday. So it is, so he used to drive me up at like 8 in the morning, and then we wouldn't have got back to like 2 or 3 in the morning. And then I would have got up at 6 and trained before school, and then went to school the next day. And so then John was like, oh, if you're ever off school, you can just stay with me. Do you know what I'm saying? So I was like kind of staying maybe like 2-3 days a week or whatever, then if I was off school or something. And then one time, I just quit school and I told him, I was like, it's all right to stay like Monday to Friday this week. He's like, yeah, sure. And then the next week I was like, can I stay Monday, Friday this week as well? And then before long, I just squatted into his gaff, and he didn't kick me out for a few years, and so I started earning a few quid myself and could get my own apartment and stuff. So he supported me right up until I was like 17, 18. So I did.
And are you the only person living in there? His only fighter living
No,
there?
there was a couple. I was the only one there like all the time, so I was. But there was a couple of people that would have came and stayed for like a fight camp and stuff. They had like me and Brian Murr. He would have stayed there, and he's also a high-level Bellator fighter. And then there was like other fighters that would have travelled and stuff. So.
And did you learn new things about John Kavanagh from living with him as opposed to the person you see in the gym?
No, John's what you see is what you get. That's John. He's not. You don't. There's one John Kavanagh. Do you know what I mean? And that's John straight through. He's a straight man, and I learned a lot from John and how that is. Because I remember the first time I get him, I was like, a bit standoffish or something like this. But then when I been around him, then a while when I was like coming, he doesn't waste energy. Do you know what I mean? Everything's right. The answer you get straight down the middle. There's no bullshit. That's the way it is. You see is what you get, and I really, really like that about someone. Do you know what I mean? It's just honest and straight, and there's nothing in the middle. Do you know what I mean? Is where you get people and they're a character, and there's this is where John is. What he says is what he means. Do you know what I mean?
It's interesting because, like Ger mentioned Paddy Houlihan recently, he was speaking about how John is just this unbelievable technical coach, one of the best he's ever worked with, possibly the best he's ever worked with, but perhaps not the most emotional character, not the person to have a DMC with. He, as you say, very straight. He knows the answer, and if you ask a yes or a no question, he'll give you a direct answer, which is interesting. You're a 15-year-old and you're going through, obviously, a formative period in your life, and you're living with this guy where potentially you might need that sort of emotional conversation. You might need an answer where a grey area needs to be explored. Yeah. Did you ever encounter that at all? Did you ever need any help like that?
Yeah, still do. And the way that I am and the way like I feel how I live my life is that people want a pat in the back and like, go on, good on you. Do you know what I mean? Everyone wants that. But that's not how you succeed in life. Do you know what I mean? How you succeed in life and when you're feeling down is that you need someone to tell you how it actually is, factually how it is. You don't need a pat in the back and get on with it. That's what you want a bit of, do you know what I mean? That's what your girlfriend's for or something like that. You get me? Do you know what I mean? That's not what I've been down, and I still have been when I was going through getting panic attacks in the gym. John Kavanagh was the main man who was there for me. Do you know what I mean? Him and my father was always there. They were the first people there, text me every day, and they're the people that tell you, all right, you're not feeling, but get up and go a walk in the morning. Do you know what I mean? Stop laying there feeling sorry for yourself. No one around here is going to feel sorry, or no one's going to, do you know what I mean? And it's just a straight answer. It tells you what you need. Do you know what I mean? And that's what I like about John, and that's how I am. Do you know what I mean? I like people just to tell me how it is straight up. Do you know what I mean? Even when you might like the answer, but you know it's going to be fact.
Talking about people playing characters in the fight game, you know, your job is to win the fights, but also frequently to sell tickets. You know, that's like it's this weird scenario where you need to be somebody that people want to come and see fight, either win or lose. Yeah. So how do you avoid becoming the character, and how do you keep that character from taking over your life? Do you know what I mean? Because it's easily done.
Me. So even like it's funny you were talking about people be scared to fight, and I fought Madison Square Garden. I fought in when I was like 19, like or 20, I think it was. You know what I mean? It was a big show, 21,000 people and stuff. And I walked out on that ramp to fight my idol's brother, his big brother. My legs were shaking, so I was terrified, like but excited. Do you know what I'm saying? I wasn't like scared as I don't want to do this. I was excited, but it's a scary thing. You went into fight, but then I've headlined Dublin twice, and it's the only 2 times that I've out of my 11 professional fights that I've never been scared, ever. So it is, and it's just I thrive under high-pressured situations and confrontation. It's just me. I think it might be just growing up back home and stuff. But if someone comes up into my face and is like, "Let's fight," I don't get like agitated or like caught up in it or nothing. I like it. It's fun to me. Do Do you know what I mean? I like that confrontation. Something's going to pop off here. Do you know what I mean? And I just feel comfortable in that kind of environment. So it is. So that's just how I am. Do you know what I mean? When everyone's like, "Oh, you're all talking," it's like, no, this guy is coming in to step in to take my dreams away from me. I'm going to fuck him up. Do you know what I mean? And
well, let's talk about the coming back from setbacks then, because you did have a loss on your record, right?
Yeah.
What happened in that fight? And in retrospect, what did you learn from it?
What happens? I got knocked clean out. So it is black and white. That's simple as. A better man on the night came in, caught me on my game, and put me away. And
what would you do differently now if you were to go back and tap yourself on the shoulder and go, right, this is what's likely to happen if you don't do? What would you do?
The same thing I've done in my last 3 fights, or last 4, I think it is. I'm on a 4-fight win streak, 3 or 4 fight win streak now. And I would do what I did there, how I carried myself, how I approached it.
So you did learn, you changed things up?
Changed everything. So I did. Before that fight, I was out for 15 months with a bad knee injury. I was supposed to headline in Dublin. My knee got ripped apart. I had to go through surgery. I was out for 15 months. I couldn't even change my own socks, so I couldn't, or wash myself. I had to get help, and as a young man, that's degrading. Do you know what I mean? Your mother coming in and helping you wash yourself and stuff like this, and that was for about a month before I was able to just do things around the gaff myself. And my approach then in training, it was very emotional from that. I was coming back from a knee injury. I have to prove something. I have to show something. I had an anger inside me to prove something, rather than just going in there and doing the sport that I love and having fun and competing and enjoying that confrontation.
So you walked into the punch basically,
and
you've been walking into it for months, essentially.
Exactly.
As opposed to.
That's exactly what happened. I went in with an emotional mindset, and a very ignorant mindset. So I was in the fight, because if you look at the fight, I was beating the guy right up until he put me away. And I would have got my way and be like, I'm just going to do that again. So there's no craftiness, no a mindset to craft him. Do you know what I mean? It was just bully him, just walk through him. I can do this. I'm tough. I'm this, and then you're not. Do you know what I mean? Humans are not tough. They're just not tough people. So you have to be smart and calculated in how you approach your contest, and that's what I was not.
Did that give you a sense of what life might be like without the fight game for a little while as well? Is there part of you that thinks I need something in the background here, or is the fight game? you push your chips into the table as a 15-year-old. Are they still there? Are you taking a few chips off the table as you go and going, I'm going to squirrel that one away for a rainy day, or I have a backup plan?
Yeah, definitely 100%. But no, not that loss made me more in love with the sport.
But even the injury, injury is a realistic thing for you guys. A bad concussion could put you out.
That could be done tomorrow. So this is a realistic game. But no, I've made a few smart investments now, and I'm getting into property and stuff like that there and stuff. So I'm kind of setting myself up for the rest of my life. And hopefully over the next year and a half, 2 years, I won't really need to worry about much else after the sport.
Yeah.
But I'm always going to be involved in MMA. So this is my passion. Do you know what I mean? I don't fight. I earn nice money, and money does motivate me, and all these nice things. It does motivate me, but it doesn't get me up out of bed in the morning to go to the gym. So it doesn't. It really doesn't. It makes me at night time when I'm seeing my friends and I'm chilling out. That makes me like, let's go and buy this new car. Let's go and buy a new watch. Or it's just more for a casual thing on the side. But at the end of the day, if you don't really love it, you're not going to get up in the morning and go running. You're not going to go up and put in the work. You're not going to spar. You're not going to do this. And for me, I just love the game. So I wake up in the morning to improve my game from what I was learning yesterday in the gym.
So Bellator obviously is February 22nd. What's the rest of 2020 looking like for you?
A successful year. So that's what I'm hoping more. I want to rack up a load of fights this year, 3-4 fights. Maybe fight in Dublin now in February, and then be Cal, and then maybe America. I would like a Madison Square Garden shot again in the summer.
Would that be with Bellator?
Yeah. I'm contracted under Bellator, so I have a few fights with them left. And maybe then back to Dublin at the end of the year. That would be a nice plan for the year. So, but I just have to wait and see how this show plans out, and I just focus on one at a time. I've got a tough contest in my hands, so I'm just going to make sure that I'm the best that I've ever been, and I'll walk in there and blitz him if I put in the preparation, train right, have the right mindset, and approach it the way that I want to approach it.
So obviously you've got a lot of supporters and they come to see you fight. You also, I think, are probably one of those characters who divides people. Are you aware of that? Is that something that do you go on YouTube and look at the comments and read them? So you're obviously using that as motivation. Does it piss you off at some level?
No, I don't use it as motivation, so I don't. I feel sorry for those people. Do you know what I mean? Like, I have stuff to do. I don't have time to go and look at on the internet and hate on someone. You know what I mean? Like, make it get. You know what I mean? Why are they not so busy? When I go on the internet myself in my downtime, I look at people who inspire me. I look at people that I want to reach to. I look at, you know what I mean? That's my mindset.
Who are you looking at?
I look at everyone. So I do Darren Till, Gunnar Nelson, Connor, everyone, any fighters. Do you know what I mean? People in my division. Do you know what I mean? People, my future opponents. I take inspiration from their wins. Do you know what I mean? I idolize that. Someone look at them. Yeah, I might have to go up and against you. I might have to be against you. But look at the work that they've done. They're doing, you know what I mean? I look to see if they're doing anything that I'm not doing. And then I try and catch up and I try and get it and try and keep ahead of everyone else.
And why do you think people haven't got on board with you? Why do you think some people do hate you?
Because people don't like themselves, so they can't really like anyone else that is doing significantly better than them. Do you know what I mean? They hate to see a 23-year-old run around and I've got money, I've got this, I've got everything that kind of anyone that really wants. You know what I mean? As such, but people like that don't really know that that's not about life. When you get these kind of things, you realise that just waking up every day and doing something you love is what you know. That's when you've made it. Do you know what I mean? It's not to do that fucking 80 grand car, I've this amount of watch, I've got that houses, I've got this. That's actually not that significant, you know. But that's not the sign that I've made it now. I've got this amount of money. For me, when I say I've made it, is when I know I wake up in the morning and go, I can't wait to go to the gym. Do you know what I mean? I don't need to go and do that. I'm going to do something I love every day, something I'm passionate about, and something that I'm going to give everything I've got to until I achieve my goals.
Is it just YouTube comments and online comments that you get, that you hear the very odd story of a sports person getting approached in the street and somebody saying it face to face? But I'd imagine the number that fighters get is probably zero.
Once.
Well, oh, really? It has happened. That's brave man or woman.
Once. Yeah, it was just someone drunk. So it was. He actually tried to attack me.
Oh, right.
Yeah, he tried to attack me. So he didn't. And then I had a security guard there. I didn't do nothing. Do you know what I mean? I just sit back, and I was actually on crutches when I had hurt my knee.
Right.
And a guy came up to me and started giving me abuse to my face. And then one of the security guards, he came in and attacked me and pushed me while I was on crutches. And one of the security guards dealt with him and fired him out. So it is after I got a picture with his kid who just fought. So it is. So I was being nice to his kid, best of luck in your future. And then his dad tried to fight with me. So it was fucking hilarious, you know what I mean? I'm just so used to fighting and stuff. So I'm pretty aware of distance and stuff, and I made sure I wasn't in anywhere. And the security guard guided him out, so there was no trouble. But yeah, once, but I don't really care, do you know what I mean? I wake up every day doing something I love, do you know what I mean? And if you sat here now and go, you're this, you're that, and I'm like, yeah, that's cool, that's what you think, do you know what I mean? That's no odds to me.
Yeah.
What you think, what the perception that you've got of me in your own head, that's not my problem. Do you know what I mean? If you think I'm this, then that's the perception that you have of me, then take that and do what you want with it, mate. Do you know what I mean? That's no odds to me. I don't care. I know who I am. I'm a nice guy. Do you know what I mean? And I'm nice to my family, I'm nice to me, and nice to my friends. And outside of that, I don't care. So I don't care. I'm doing what I'm doing. And
in the fight game, you kind of need to care a little bit at some level. But I mean, okay, so you've already sold out the 3 arenas, so maybe you don't need to care that much. But if you want to sell out bigger venues in the future, that whole image side of who you are and what you project is going to be something that you're going to trade off. Is that part of the business that you're engaged with at the minute?
No, because I'm only out here to show the people that support me and prove them right. Do you know what I mean? I'm not here to prove no one wrong, no haters wrong, but the people that support me and come out and buy the tickets, who are standing in the stands with their flags up, they're calling me name out when I'm walking out, they're the people that stop me for a picture on the street. I'm out here fighting to prove everyone that has got my back right. Do you know what I mean? I'm not here to go and show that hit or wrong. He doesn't deserve for me to waste my time to show him that he's wrong. So it doesn't. I don't engage with that kind of negativity. But what I want to do is, the little kid that I grew up lives around the corner from me. Do you know what I mean? I want to be able to be someone that they can go, look what he did. He went and put in that work and became something. Or the people that stop me for a picture and pay money to go and watch me fight, I want to give them a good night. I want to show them, look at James, he went and did that. Do you know what I mean? He went and beat that guy, and that's what I'm about. I'm here to make people happy and proud. I'm not here to prove people wrong. Do you know what I mean? Because that's negative.
Yeah, no, I get that. It's just that because the fight game has this whole trash talk to get attention, to seize the column inches, to make sure that the coverage goes up, because that means more money the next time, more bums on seats.
That is people. But if I have a problem with someone, I'll say it, and if I don't, like, I won't.
So no faking, no fake trash talk.
Like my next opponent, he seems like a nice family guy. Do you know what I mean? I've nothing against him, but when he steps into that cage, I'm going to cave his head in. And that's the way it is, and he's going to try and do it to me. So I'm going to do it to him first. Do you know what I mean? I make no mistake about it. I'm not here to shake his hand and be pals. I've got friends. I don't need them. Doesn't mean he's not a nice guy. Do you know what I mean? So people are like that. But if I've got a problem with someone, if he disrespects me, I'll definitely let them know about it, and I'll definitely will say it. Do you know what I mean? So there's no need to sell it. People might tune in and watch me succeed, and my fans are going to come and no matter what and support me, and they're going to do this. Haters might tune in to the trash talk and go in and give you abuse about it. He's trying to be like this, he's trying to do that. But my supporters are going to come in there to see me compete and do well and have my back no matter what, and that's what I love about this game. And the supporters in it, and especially the supporters that I've got, they're loyal supporters, and they've got your back all the way through, and it's absolutely, it's overwhelming, and I'm even getting goosebumps like talking about it right now, and the love that I've got for the people that come and support me is next to none, and everyone that I see at the fights and all, I'm always out buzzing around, and I just love that energy from them people who want to see you do good, because you just feel so positive and you feel so good about yourself, and then I can also make them good by just stopping for 5 minutes and be like, oh, how's things, what's your name, do you know what I mean, and just nice, thanks for coming. It makes them feel on that level, but really they think that I'm being nice.
If you become stratospherically famous, will you lose that though?
No, why would you?
I don't know, because it happens to loads of people. Yeah. You see the journey is like, everybody starts out, and the hard work to reach that point is evident, but when you get to that superstar level, you're like, oh, I don't need to do that anymore. Yeah,
but that's just ignorant people. I feel like everyone's like, oh, I feel like fame and money will show your real self. Do you know what I mean? I really do think I'm a nice guy, and I'm going to conduct myself in a good way, and I feel like my mother would be very disappointed if I ever turned out that way. Do you know what I mean? And that's the only reason why I'm in this game, is to support me and my family and do them proud, and how I conduct myself is probably the only thing that would really matter to them, no matter how much money I made and stuff. So that's just not me. So it isn't. But the way I am, and I feel like a lot of people like that are very fake, is that if someone comes up to me and I'm not feeling it, I'll be like, sorry, can you please leave me? Do you know what I mean? You're really annoying me.
Yeah.
But if you're being nice to me, then I have no reason why to change.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
No, totally.
But if someone is being not nice to you, then I'll have no problem. Be like, sorry, mate, I don't like how you're being to me. Can you go on?
Yeah.
And that's fair. Do you know what I mean? I'm just straight to the point. I do it all the time, and I'm out. People come up to me and they're be a bit much or drunk or something. I'll be like, sorry, mate, thanks very much for coming, but I'm really not feeling this right now. Can you please just be on your way?
Yeah.
And I don't know any disrespect, and I've never had a problem doing that, and I don't feel like anyone has been like, oh, you're a dickhead for doing that, because
you're not being a dickhead.
You're just being honest.
Fair enough. James, best of luck with it. I hope you do make it all the way to the stratospheric level of fame.
Thanks very much. I appreciate it.
Bellator's coming back to Dublin on February the 22nd. That card's going to be headlined by James Gallagher at the 3 Arena. Those tickets are on sale on Friday, November the 29th at 9 o'clock. We're going to talk Jose Moore with Andy Mitten and hopefully Graham Hunter as well after 9 o'clock. First, here's some of Kevin Kilban's takeaways from Ireland's draw with Denmark, and then Tom's going to be here with the headlines.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
The Sunday Paper Review
On Off the Ball.
When he wants to do something, he does it. A hugely impressive person, apart from being obviously a brilliant golfer.
My cousins disliked their dog so intensely that they renamed it Scalacci.
Yeah.
And the dog was called Scalacci from then on.
It's a great piece of journalism, and that sums up what he's like. The intro to this is just brilliant. He is an absolute control freak.
Digesting the best stories on the back pages every Sunday afternoon on Off the Ball.
OTB AM.
How much do you think the good parts of the Irish performance were down to a Denmark team who didn't need to win?
There's probably an element of that. Yes, of course there is, but there was still enough quality on the pitch. And I mean, you look throughout their side, and they have got good players. But Joe, I harped on about it beforehand, and I harped on about it so often. How they beat us 5-1 in that playoff game 2 years ago, I don't know. I still can't get my head around that result, because although they've dominated possession, and they did outplay us over in Copenhagen early on in this campaign, other than that, they haven't. And they're not a great side. They're not a side that would intimidate me in any way, shape or form. They're quite a long ball side. You're talking about them playing through the thirds and everything last night. I don't see that from Denmark. Whenever I've seen them, they hit so many long diagonal balls, whether it'll be to Poulsen or Braithwaite. They like to go direct into Cornelius as well. That's how they play. They're a very much a functional team that are difficult to beat, and that's why they've got the record that they have, that unbeaten run that they're on, because they're so hard to beat, but they're just not necessarily a good footballing side.
Kevin Kilban there talking about the no great shakes that are the Denmark national football team on last night's Off the Ball. Full piece available on youtube.com/Off the Ball. Tom Malone, a very good morning to you.
Yeah, good morning, Alan. It's quite a morning, to be perfectly honest.
You've been working on the news desk all morning. You came in.
Yeah, we came in, we get in about 6:15, sitting there going, oh, well, have a quick look at the next manager odds there for Spurs. Oh, see what's going on. It's got to be. And next thing, 6:25, statement, bang.
I was thinking, like, if you were somebody who wanted an early night last night and is one of those people who tends to turn off their phone for an hour before going to bed, and then you wake up at a regular time this morning, you would have missed Maurizio Pochettino getting sacked, and you would have missed Jose Mourinho getting appointed. If you're a Spurs fan who's of that persuasion, you would have been like, this is definitely a dream.
Yeah, like there was only, I think, 10 hours and 55 minutes between the two announcements. So, yeah, so if you had a good sleep last night, there's a good chance you missed both the sacking and the appointment.
I presume that is what's leading us off this morning.
Yeah, absolutely. It's Panto season, so everyone's favourite villain is back in the Premier League.
I'm European champion, so I'm not one of the bottle. I think I'm a special one.
Yeah, well, Jose Mourinho, that's from his greatest hits tour there. But back in the Premier League, he's the new manager of Tottenham Hotspur. The Portuguese replaces Mauricio Pochettino at the North London club. Mourinho's been given a contract at the new White Hart Lane until the end of the 22-23 season. Of course, he had been out of work, managerially that is, since being sacked by Manchester United in December of last year. Mourinho has won 20 major trophies. Intriguingly, the Spurs statement said 25 trophies, but I think that includes charity shields, but yeah, 20 major trophies. Yeah, we go with 20 major trophies, but the Spurs statement did say 25. Included 3 Premier League titles with Chelsea and the Champions League with Porto, and Inter Milan. He told Sky Sports News back in July that he's been selective.
I have to be rational. I have not to choose just because I want to work and I'm desperate to work. I have to choose because I think is the right project for me, is the right motivation for me. I want to become stronger than ever.
Also, there are so many good pictures of Jose Mourinho just kind of making faces like that, scowling and gurning. It's going to be great. Anyway, Pochettino, of course, was shown the door last night after 5.5 years in charge after a poor run of results that sees Tottenham lie 14th in the Premier League table. While the Republic of Ireland's scenic route to the Euro 2020 Championships has been confirmed, it'll begin away in Slovakia in March. That's after Wales secured automatic qualification to the finals last night with a 2-0 win over Hungary in Cardiff. That win gave Wales boss Ryan Giggs a chance to do something he didn't as a player and featured a major tournament with his country. Giggs says it's like nothing he ever experienced before.
The fans, the staff, the players, you have to manage everything, so it's a completely different sort of kettle of fish. So I didn't really, when I took over, think about my playing career. It was all about getting Wales to another major championship as a manager.
Slovakia, meanwhile, finished third in Group E. They got the better of Azerbaijan by 2-0 last night. And should Ireland beat the Slovaks, they'll face either Northern Ireland or Bosnia-Herzegovina for a place in the finals. Northern Ireland took the lead away to Germany last night before a Serge Gnabry hat-trick was part of a 6-0 loss in Frankfurt. And a superb second-half performance by the Republic of Ireland under-21s sees them top of their Euro qualifying group. Stephen Kenny's side came from behind to thrash Sweden by 4-1 at the Tallaght Stadium. Troy Parrott and Adam Ida were among the goal scorers, while Conor Ronan's second-half introduction appeared to turn the game. In rugby, Dave Rennie has been confirmed as the next head coach of Australia. The Kiwi replaces Michael Cheika, who left the post after a disappointing World Cup for the Wallabies. Rennie will see out the season with the Glasgow Warriors before taking the reins down under through to the 2023 World Cup. And in boxing, Jason Quigley will return to the ring next month. The Donegal middleweight will face Mexico's Abraham Cordero in California on the 5th of December. Quigley's been training with former middleweight world champion and friend of the show, Andy Lee, as he begins to make his comeback from that first professional defeat in July. And racing later comes from Dundalk. Their 8-race card, the first there goes to post at 2.
Very good, Tom. A busy morning, I dare say, as this thing rumbles and rumbles. So that audio from Jose was from a time ago.
Yeah.
So the first interview, do we know when it's happening?
Well, the Spurs play the weekend, so imagine there'll be a Friday presser. There'll surely be an announcement at some stage over the course of the day where he will be unveiled. You know, the details worked out. Which hotel will he live in? You know, how... it's the circus is back in town, isn't it?
Well, very much back in his town, isn't it?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It stops being about Spurs and it just starts all being about Jose again. Like all the lads have said, it is the bizarrest marriage of a chairman who hates spending and a manager who just loves to spend.
And who almost needs to spend.
Yeah, absolutely. Pretty much everywhere he goes. He starts with 200 million and sort of works from there. It's intriguing, but look, but as was mentioned as well, what were the other options? If not, like, it's obviously gone wrong with Pochettino. If not Jose, and I don't think it's the right idea, but who else? It was kind of a dearth of, like, we were looking through those, odds. I mean, it's not the greatest place to look, but like, who was next? Sort of Eddie Howe, Carlo Ancelotti. I mean, he's getting shipped out of Napoli soon, but his reputation is undoubtedly tarnished.
It does strike me that Daniel Levy is just a huge fan of Jose Mourinho, because he had him on a level above any of those other candidates, as you mentioned. He saw it as like a really kind of average list of potential candidates to succeed Mauricio Pochettino, and that's why he acted so quickly. He thought that Arsenal might have swooped in and got Jose Mourinho, but we will get into more of this with Andy Mitten and Graham Hunter throughout the rest of the show. Phil Egan will be joining us shortly as well. Thanks a million, Tom.
Cheers,
here is the thoughts of Chris Waddle. He was on the Football Show last night.
He can, he sort of gets everything. It's like he sort of sets his stall out to think, I want everybody to hear it, and we could prove it wrong, and when we get the results, I can start to laugh at you. If it doesn't work out like that, obviously the club think he's got a bad image for the club, and then he'll be moved out. If they are going for him, we know his proven record of winning trophies, but as you say, his football is very, very dour. In Tottenham, as a club who have been brought up on excitement, entertainment, I played there myself, I know what the fans want. It's very hard to keep winning that, but modern day football now, it's geared for entertainment and winning things. And look at Man City, look at Liverpool, they play unbelievable football. And if you're going in there and Mourinho thinks I'm going to try and get 1-0 every week, I think there's managers in the past been into Tottenham have done that and probably won a trophy, but the fans haven't enjoyed the style of play. They may put up, if somebody says, listen, I'll win you the league in 2 years' time and I'll win you the FA Cup and whatever, fans will put up with it because they want trophies. But if you're a Tottenham fan who loves and being brought up the style and how Tottenham have played, it's such the beautiful game, they'll not enjoy his football. No, definitely not.
No.
Chris Waddle there speaking on the Football Show last night, immediately after the news came out, really, that Mauricio Pochettino had been sacked, and talking about the inevitability that Jose would have been brought in. Also on last night's show, it was Tuesday Night Rugby because of our live commentary on Monday night, and Brian O'Driscoll was alongside Joe. Here is his take on Kieran Marmion staying put at Connacht.
I think Blade's pass is a bit better than Marmion. I think that's where Marmion has possibly lost out in the past in those 50-50 calls. And obviously when it comes to Rugby World Cup, we know about his huge disappointment about being left out. And
he's taken it quite badly by all accounts.
Yeah, and I suppose you can understand that. I was somewhat surprised at that call. I really felt for him, because you're playing and starting against New Zealand 10 10 months previously, and all of a sudden you've played most of the Six Nations, come on and done an okay job. Every time he's played in green, he's never let the side down. So all of a sudden to get usurped by McGrath at the last minute is a tough one to take. And now he's got a serious battle on his hands. I suppose it's good news for Connacht and for Irish rugby that he's staying put. There was talk of a move to Saracens. Maybe it was not the greatest timing of that news emerging 10 days ago or 2 weeks ago, as he was trying to negotiate on both fronts.
He was going to buy a coffee shop with Nigel Ray, apparently. Marmo Brew.
Yeah. But he... I think Blade's pass is a little bit snappier, and I think a scrum half, particularly from an international perspective, everyone knows that the time on the ball is restricted comparatively to Pro 14 and certainly Pro 14 and Europe, so you need to get the ball into hand, quicker.
Brian O'Driscoll speaking to Joe on last night's show. The full piece available on YouTube right now. We are turning back to the football though. Andy Mitten is with us on the line from Japan, I think. Andy, good afternoon to you, I think.
Yeah, good afternoon. I'm in Osaka. I've come here to interview David Villa, Andres Iniesta, and watch a bit of Japanese football and write about it. But I'm a bit jet lagged, but everything's fine.
Very good. I saw Iniesta and Villa play a few weeks ago when they were playing Hiroshima when I was over there. They got hammered actually at the time, Andy. I was expecting better things. I don't think they play for Vissel Kobe, right? And things haven't gone exactly amazingly for them.
No, they haven't. Vissel are below halfway in the league table. Podolski also plays there. Thomas Vermaelen also plays there as well. And David Villa, when he said he was going to retire in the next couple of months, I think those who've watched him closely maybe thought it was the right time. Some players have done well when they've come to Japan. I think Iniesta is very popular. He's done okay, but no, the idea of them coming and leading Vissel to a title has been way off. They've been very, very consistent. They've changed managers. So I'll see what they've got to say about it. It seems like an interesting place for them to play, and I'm looking forward to meeting Andres in the morning.
I'm looking forward to reading the piece as well, Andy. Just one other thing that kind of is curious about it is the whole Kobe model over there. Rakuten involved with the club, looking to become the Barcelona of the Far East, essentially. Is that correct?
Yeah, and I'm asking questions about that. I want to find out what's going on there. And when I speak to the club, I get responses seemingly from Rakuten's press office rather than the club's press office. So I'm not sure how much power they've got there. Gerard Piqué is entwined with it. Rakuten are obviously a major sponsor of Barca as well. And the guy I know best, even though I've interviewed Villa and Iniesta many times, the guy I know best is Sergi Samper, and he played for Barca, and he moved over as well. So there's another former Barca player playing for Vissel Kobe. So I don't know how ambitious they are, and if they want to win league titles, they should be doing far better than they have been doing. But that's why I'm here, to get the story. I'm going to watch them play a derby against Cerezo Osaka on Saturday and find out a here and now of where the J-League is, and ask a lot of questions and hopefully write a few interesting articles off the back of it.
Very good. So when you wake up this morning, I presume, to the news that Mauricio Pochettino is gone, first of all, before we get into the whole Jose Mourinho element, what are you thinking? Are you thinking this is madness on Daniel Levy's part?
I saw Pochettino close up pre-season in Singapore, and I don't cover Tottenham as closely as I cover Manchester United, but he reminded me of Mourinho in the previous pre-season. He didn't look happy. He was sending out very mixed messages. And I was thinking, trying to be objective, wait a minute, your Spurs, you've just had a brilliant season. You've been in the final of the Champions League. What's going on behind the scenes there? And you could tell that things were not happy. And I spoke to several of the Spurs players on the record, but I spoke to other people I know close to Spurs off the record, and you could see that the players had issues. I was told there were a lot of egos there. I think the manager was frustrated that he couldn't bring more players in. I think there was just a disconnect and a breakdown in relationships, and that's been reflected in poor league results because Tottenham have been really poor this season. I think he's a good manager. I watched him closely, actually, when he was at Espanyol. And then when he went to Southampton, and I know two people who know him very well, and They said he's ruthlessly ambitious, but Pochettino's stock has definitely dimmed in the last year, because it was a year ago where people were saying he will replace Jose Mourinho at Manchester United, and that's obviously moved on quite a few steps since then.
Right, so you would think that his stock has diminished to the point where his links that will probably pop up at Manchester United as soon as Solskjaer goes through his next bad run. You think that those links are very, very tenuous at this point?
I don't think they're as strong as they were 2 months ago, because Solskjaer has won 5, drawn 2 and lost 1 of his last 8 games. The jury's definitely still out for Solskjaer. Look at Manchester United's league position. It's almost as unconvincing as Tottenham's league position. I think Pochettino will get a top-level job. He's taken Spurs to the Champions League final. Although I was there in Madrid, they didn't turn up, Spurs. They were really disappointing. I don't know whether they were exhausted after their exertions. But I think that Pochettino will be in the frame, but he hasn't won trophies with Tottenham. I think he should have gone out and won, even if it was a League Cup, even if it was an FA Cup. But he's clearly a very, very talented manager. I just sense that. And I spoke again to someone who knows him very well a few weeks ago, and he just said it's time for a new cycle there. He needs to build another project. The person suggested Manchester United, but I think Ole Gunnar's quite popular among a lot of United fans at the moment. Certainly among the fans who go to the matches, certainly among the fans who we survey. And I spoke to Ole Gunnar 2 weeks ago. I was left with the firm impression that he knows exactly what he wants to do and who he wants to get rid of and which players he's happy with and which ones he isn't, that he wants to continue the recruitment, which has gone well for him so far. But let's not be kidding. Manchester United have had a poor start to this season. He can build for the future all he likes, but he still needs to get results in the short term as well. And he's been getting them in the last month, but before that he wasn't.
Yeah. Like, it's interesting that you talk about the fact that Mauricio Pochettino almost reminded you of Jose Mourinho in terms of his pre-season demeanour. It's the point I was trying to make earlier on as well, that there's kind of a sulking nature to Pochettino and Jose Mourinho. Now, I don't know, so sometimes the word sulking can kind of suggest that you don't have a winning mentality or something like that. I think, to be fair, it often comes from a situation where the manager feels that they're being screwed over by the board or that the players have abandoned him or whatever. So perhaps it's understandable sulking, but still, it is a demeanour that you've pointed out as well that is similar between the two men. If you want to change at your club, is Jose Mourinho basically too similar to Mauricio Pochettino in terms of the control he likes to have in the dressing room, in terms of, I guess, a way of playing that sometimes grinds people down as well? I know it's different to Mauricio Pochettino, but it does seem that the players left in the Tottenham dressing room have kind of been left left behind by this in a similar manner to how Manchester United players were feeling at the end of the Jose Mourinho era. Are those connections, am I making too much of a case here between those connections between the two managers?
No, I mean, I made the connection when I was sat there in Singapore. My immediate thought was, this reminds me of a year ago in Michigan when Jose Mourinho was saying, I wouldn't pay to watch this Manchester United team. Now, even if he felt that, you do not say it publicly. And I saw United almost disintegrating and contrasting completely with Liverpool, who were also in Michigan, where Jurgen Klopp was glad-handing people, he was smiling. It was only a pre-season. You could do that. And you could see that Mourinho's message that he was sending out was a mixed one. He clearly wasn't happy. And one suspected it had ended in tears, and it did do 3 months later. And it's almost exactly the same what has happened with Pochettino at Tottenham. That said, he turned Tottenham into a great side. Tottenham were a byword for being flimsy. Wasn't it Roy Keane who said, come on, lads, it's only Tottenham? They did absolutely nothing. There's so many positives that have come from Tottenham in the last 5 years. They're playing in the best stadium in England. They're selling it out. They're getting 62,000 every week. They reached the European Cup final. This is a major, major achievement. That win away at Ajax in the semi-final was incredible, but he still hasn't won anything. I do think he'll get a good job. Relationships were clearly tense. I know that Daniel Levy isn't always the easiest operator to work with, certainly not an easy negotiator. And now we have the spectre of Jose Mourinho at Tottenham, which I'm sure will be very uneasy for Chelsea fans because they despise Tottenham.
Who do you think is easier to work with, Daniel Levy or Ed Woodward?
Well, I've never worked closely with them. I've only been a journalist and spoken to Ed Woodward many times. I suspect Ed Woodward because I know that people have negotiated. Well, I know Manchester United people have negotiated with Levy and they found him a very, very difficult operator. In the eyes of Tottenham fans, a very good operator because he gets the money that they want for players like Michael Carrick, Dimitar Berbatov. And under him, Tottenham have now got into a position where they don't need to sell the best players anymore. Manchester United could go to Tottenham 15 years ago and take those players. We wouldn't have a chance of doing that now. Roy Keane can mention United going for Harry Kane, but it's highly improbable now. But Woodward also is on far shakier ground, certainly with the fans, than Daniel Levy is.
Right, that kind of adds to the whole allure of Tottenham Hotspur now. If you kind of leave aside the sort of recent history that Jose Mourinho has, which doesn't reflect amazingly well on his whole legacy, I think it's fair to say. And if we just judge this on reputation alone, like this is the most high-profile appointment Tottenham Hotspur have ever had in their history as a football club. Jose Mourinho is without a doubt the most charismatic, the biggest name that Spurs have ever had, and that has to count for something when it comes to keeping these players. Allied to the fact that you've mentioned it yourself, Manchester United have had to negotiate with Daniel Levy in the past, probably because Jose Mourinho wanted a couple of these Spurs players in the past. He definitely wanted a couple of these Spurs players in the past. There's likely to be a mutual respect here, Andy. It's a different question of how long this lasts, but it's likely to be the honeymoon period is going to be good, I suspect, at White Hart Lane.
It fits perfectly for Mourinho in many ways, in that he's living in London. Tottenham is a huge club. He will be vengeful. He was perceived to have failed at Manchester United. Is he finished as a top-level manager? That's what people are saying. He's got to prove otherwise. And he will have resources, but he won't have the super resources. When he was at Manchester United, he did spend a lot, but he identified Harry Maguire, but he said, don't go above this amount for him because of his own professional pride. So that led to all sorts of complications. He lacks control. He likes to have control. Mourinho's got to, because if he doesn't succeed at Tottenham, I think his time as a top level manager, I don't think he'll be getting another top job. He'll do what he does. He'll come in, he'll smile, he'll insinuate that he's changed. And to be fair to him, behind the scenes at Manchester United, and certainly when I spoke to him, he was always a decent person to deal with. Nowhere near as friendly as Solskjaer, but by the end, Mourinho was toxic at Manchester United. And I think there are Tottenham fans who've never loved Mourinho because of his Chelsea connections. So that adds another twist to it.
Yeah.
It'll be very interesting at Old Trafford on the 4th of December. Manchester United against Tottenham. Tottenham won 3-0 last year in the same fixture. United actually played well. But Mourinho was fuming after the game.
Yeah, the three fingers up, the 3 goals conceded. That's also the amount of Premier League titles that I've won. An iconic press conference. There are going to be so many iconic press conferences, and for that reason alone, from a journalist standpoint, Andy, I think it's great to have Jose back in the Premier League. Listen, enjoy the rest of Japan. Looking forward to reading your piece about Kobe and the Steelers there.
Thanks for having me.
Cheers, Andy. That is Andy Mitten there on the line. We're going to get to Graham Hunter in just a moment. A couple of comments coming in. Barrett Roshta says that Jose is now in the dinosaur manager category. Bad appointment for Tottenham Hotspur. Baked Bean then says, we all know Levy won't be handing out 200 million quid from nowhere, and the only massive asset they have is Harry Kane to sell. Lewis says, Manchester United had a reputation of winning that the Glazers have sold worldwide. Spurs could be next. And Peter says, great news for us Spurs fans. Loved Pochettino, but we have to move on, and Jose is the guy you go for. And then finally, Stephen here, very strange appointment, the marriage of a chairman who has a tight grip on the purse strings and a manager who is only happy when he's hemorrhaging money, playing negative defensive bus parking. So bit of a mixed bag when it comes to the reaction this morning. Graham Hunter is with us. Hello, Graham.
Buenos dias, Owen.
How are you keeping? This is quite the news, quite the twist. If you wanted to add a bit of spice to a Premier League season, you get Jose Mourinho right back in there, and that's exactly what Spurs are doing.
I find it interesting, Owen. look, it's no news to anybody who listens to your show, watches your show. It's no news to you or Ger that, I've found lots of reasons to be sometimes constructively critical and often simply critical of Jose Mourinho's latter-day apparitions. And therefore, I find it really interesting that he's in tandem with Levy, because for a long time, Levy has done things that are truly extraordinary at Spurs. I've lived through times when a stadium project, never mind a stadium and training ground project, I've nearly ruined clubs. Leeds and Chelsea are two examples. Each of whom very nearly went to the wall principally because of stadium costs spiralling. And therefore, what Levy's achieved, and I think that now that Pochettino's gone, if we reckon back to the day that he signed him from Southampton and think about how few people said, that's brilliant business. That's extraordinarily perceptive to take the Southampton manager. And it has proven to be. But for quite a long time, Levy has been the check and balance is in the wrong proportion, because he has to win every argument over the summer or the winter in the market. He has to win every argument with his coach about what to spend, when to spend it, upon whom, who to renew, what size of contract will keep his current squad, his key current players, not only there, but happy, incentivised. There are several players at Spurs who for many, 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 many months have known that their equivalents, or players who are not as good as them, or haven't achieved as much as them, are earning 3 times as much as them. So what Levy's managed to produce is the what do you call it in television now, showrunner. He's the showrunner of this series, Owen, isn't he? And I would argue that for quite some time, his need to squeeze every last, not only every last penny, but every last drop of blood out of every single deal has been the thing that was beginning to hold Spurs back from proper triumphs. It's not the only thing, but it's a key strategic organisational flaw that, if corrected, leaves Tottenham Hotspur in an extraordinary position. Now, you merge that with, it's like the first guy who ever said, let's see what vodka and tomato juice with a bit of, pepper sauce in it and salt tastes like. Because, not the original Mourinho, because we're not going to get that, but Mourinho at his best adds the ruthless determination, whether it's for his own CV, for his own ego, for his own salary, the ruthless determination to win above anything else is something that will be very interesting to be mixed into that environment. And let's see, for my taste, let's see whether Levy can change an inch or two, and let's see whether we see a Mourinho who's slightly more energised. He looks younger, slimmer, fitter on television. He looks as if the sabbatical hasn't dragged, that he's used it well. It feels a little bit like the Mourinho pre that horrible second spell at Chelsea and the dog days at Manchester United. Does that mean that all his powers are back again? I wouldn't like to proclaim that. But if you don't mind, Owen, and stop me if you do mind, I in all the flurry of Pochettino might go, now he's gone, Mourinho's in, I think that there's been too little said about, irrespective of him being nowhere near Bill Nicholson in achievements, irrespective of the fact that he didn't lift a trophy, at a time when Levy was constructing what's genuinely understood to be one of the top 2 or 3, some people say the best, training ground in Europe, plus a stadium to be not only proud of, but genuinely excited by, 2 platforms that can definitely help catapult Spurs into the winning elite, not just the elite of Europe where they've sat now for a while. Pochettino's contribution has been tremendous. People talk about his coaching, his moodiness. I know certain players felt run off their feet by him, but I've got my notes here. In 16-17 in the Champions League, his work earned Spurs 43 million. The next year, 61 million. The figures for 18-19 aren't out, but I'll be surprised if they're not 85 million. From Champions League participation alone, something that was a holy grail for Spurs, Pochettino's efforts have earned gross Spurs 190 million over the last 3 seasons. And right now, today, 3 more goals scored, 3 domestically, would have left them having beaten Manchester City, won the North London derby at Arsenal, drawn with Liverpool. They'd be 5th, and they'd be 6 points off a Champions League place. That's a very small margin, Owen. The fact that it was a bit burned out between Levy and Pochettino, and the fact that it still may be correct that Pochettino moves on because Levy's not moving on and Levy refuses to refresh the squad properly, leaves this as a slightly unfortunate accident that there was time to preview and time to understand was coming. But boy, Pochettino's legacy isn't simply they played in the Champions League final and gosh, weren't his teams nice to watch sometimes. He's been a fundamental part of the engine which has rebuilt Spurs. Well, I think that's quite special. And right, I'll shut up now. Mourinho's taking over something that, by my own definition, isn't in too bad nick.
Yeah, there's a lot in that. There's a lot that I'd agree with. The idea of it being more than just a Champions League final, I would agree with that. But then it's also more than just their potential table position this year as well. There is the potential of how the players are feeling, how many players will they lose in January or next summer as a result of how they're feeling, as a result of perhaps Pochettino's methods and perhaps wearing thin with the players and the relationship.
All right, Owen, but throw into that mix, throw into that painting that you're putting up, the idea of the players not only being maybe a little bit tired of the boss, maybe a little bit run off their feet, and some do feel that. Pochettino absolutely knew that was coming down the line and needed renewing, and he didn't get the correct type of help from Levy. And I'm not being ultra critical of Levy here, and I'm not taking sides. But if your show stands for reasoned, balanced, in-depth analysis, Levy could have ensured that the situation you're describing didn't occur. Not only by more prompt, more intelligent buying and selling, but by telling certain players, I understand that you and Pochettino have helped me build this stadium and the training ground with your efforts, while underpaid is a phrase that maybe people are, spitting into their porridge right now at home as they watch you, but by the standards of counterparts in the Premier League and around Europe, but in the Premier League, and counterparts aren't as good as them. If you know that somebody who you don't think is your equal is earning 3 times what you're earning, sooner or later that will burn away at your ability to render your absolute top, and it will bring Spurs to the situation they're in and that you were describing. Do you know what I mean?
And it makes this very potentially violent cocktail for Jose Mourinho and co. If this, we know for sure, Graham, this thing is going to end in disaster. It just depends on how long the honeymoon period lasts.
You said that with too much glee.
We're out of time here, Graham. One word answer, one team answer. Where is Mauricio Pochettino going to end up in your view?
Nowhere until next summer, and next summer it will depend on how Solskjaer and Zidane have done, because those are the 2 clubs that he covets most.
Very good. Graham Hunter, thanks a million.
Cheers, dude.
Graham Hunter there on the line. Phil Egan, a very good morning to you.
How you doing?
This is quite the morning to be excited about football, to love the finer things in life, and the finer things in life are certainly Jose Mourinho taking a dressing room that has had a bit of turmoil in the past.
Yeah, I still can't believe it's happened. And I think back to yesterday morning, and it was in a few of the papers that Pochettino had held talks with Daniel Levy, and you kind of thought he'd get the West Ham game, and it's a fixture that has caused Tottenham trouble in the past. It wasn't last season, but I think of a couple of seasons ago, when they finished behind Leicester, they ended up finishing 3rd that season in the end, but it was a Friday night game that they lost against West Ham. West Ham love beating Spurs. They beat them in the first game at White Hart Lane last season in the league. So it was a game I feared for Pochettino anyway, but they've obviously used their international break to line all this up. And Jose Mourinho, the complete opposite. You've got a chairman who doesn't like to spend money, and you've got a manager who loves to spend money. So where do they meet in the middle?
I sense that you're not. If you were Daniel Levy or if you were running Spurs, you wouldn't have done this exact thing.
No, I think my suspicion is Daniel Levy loves the thoughts of being able to hire Jose Mourinho, because 5-6 years ago this would have been unthinkable.
I think it's a power trip.
I think there's definitely a bit of that. He's thinking, yeah, I can get Jose Mourinho. Tottenham, is this his way of saying to everyone, you know, we mean business. We're Tottenham. We're now a big club because we're getting Jose Mourinho, a serial winner. Now, he's a serial winner, but that winning is definitely on the decline. And is he going to come in? And I tell you one thing you can nearly put your money on is Spurs to win the League Cup next season.
I'll ask you this question. When it comes to Jose's winning being on the decline, that's a fact. You look at his record, his second season at Chelsea, but has the quality of players he's worked with not also been on the decline?
Yeah, absolutely. And what does that say? That says to you that the reason he has been so successful is he's been working with the best players.
Is this bunch of Spurs players better than the bunch of players he took to second with Manchester United?
I think there's definitely... It depends what way he wants to play them. Obviously, he used Ibrahimovic, and don't be surprised, by the way, if his first signing is Ibrahimovic.
You're not serious. He's done.
What?
You know, he's
a free transfer.
I know he's a free transfer, but you go to the MLS. That is you saying. That's your retirement statement, but just not your retirement statement.
You try and tell Zlatan Ibrahimovic he's done.
Okay, give me a percentage chance here. What do we think? Zlatan playing for Tottenham Hotspur? Say it has to be January. He's old. Every month counts.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it's just done maybe, say, 40-50%.
Are you being serious?
Yeah, absolutely. All he would be is an impact sub. He's obviously still in decent shape.
Spurs into 7-1 to sign him.
Yeah.
I'm behind AC Milan. Right,
absolutely.
okay, I'm clearly out of the loop here.
I'm
not been following
I don't come in here to take the mick, you know. I just think that it's one of those, you're trying to think of what kind of players will he sign? What kind of way will he set up the team? Eric Dyer is going to be key to the way Mourinho sets up this Spurs team. He obviously tried to sign Dyer when he was with Manchester United, and I think Spurs fans would have jumped at the chance of offloading Dyer for 40 million.
Eric Dyer is going to be key. Should be sending alarm bells ringing everywhere.
Unfortunately for Troy Parrott, get out Troy, get out on loan. Because Mourinho name checks the academy in his statement that Spurs released. You know, I like the work they've done in the academy. Yeah, that's a nice... Do you remember when he took over United, he was accused of not giving young players a chance, so he came up with a list of all the players. But when he actually did the research into it, he realised the minutes they'd got, and you know, there was a lot of grey areas in those facts that he brought to the table. So
Troy Parrott should basically cherish that memory against Colchester for forever. It could be a while before you.
Yeah, well, like I mentioned, the League Cup. It's a cup that Mourinho has always taken seriously. He's obviously won it with Chelsea a few times, won it with Manchester United. So Spurs are out of it. They lost that penalty shootout to Colchester, so he can't do anything with it this season. So next season, because it's the first trophy you can win, he'll always give it his all. So you'd be surprised if Troy Parrott, if he's... I suspect Troy Parrott could be out on loan somewhere next season, but if he was still at the club, is it a fixture that Troy Parrott would actually get to play in? Because obviously Zlatan will be starting that game. You're not buying it, no?
Well, it's quite the strike partnership, quite the depth chart. Harry Kane, Zlatan Ibrahimovic, Troy Parrott.
Yeah. The only thing is...
What would Troy Parrott learn from Zlatan?
Confidence. Although he's got confidence. As Mick said last week, confident, he can sing, he's good at football, he's good looking. So, I mean, what can Zlatan add to Troy Parrott in that? Is there anything?
Really nothing. Kind of a narcissistic autobiography maybe is on the way from...
Then I think as well of how infuriating is it going to be for Spurs fans if Levy opens up the checkbook and says to Mourinho, off you go. Like, you think back to, not the summer just gone, but 2018, no signings whatsoever. Pochettino has said, you know, this is what we need to do. Levy has ignored him and tried to get rid of players, couldn't get rid of them. So can you imagine the frustration if Jose Mourinho's given a war chest to sign players that Pochettino wouldn't have signed because they've got different ideas of how the game is played. But when Mourinho leaves in a couple of years, which he ultimately will, then Spurs will be left with some of these players that they mightn't want. And we've seen in the last few months Spurs have found it hard to get rid of players, and that could be the same. I wonder as well, these players like Christian Eriksen, like Alderweireld, who don't believe they're getting the deals they should be. Has Mourinho had a word at Levy on taking this job and say, I want Alderweireld, I want Christian Eriksen, you have to make sure that they get the wages they think they deserve, and then once we get them signed up, let's build for the future. But he's not a builder.
I suspect there is kind of part of Jose Mourinho as well. He mentioned this in Sky Sports a couple of weeks ago about Tottenham and about players wanting to leave, and he said sometimes you just have to let them go. We had to do it with Robin eventually at Chelsea at one point. Now, I'm not sure, was he speaking knowingly that he will be in the mix for a Tottenham Hotspur job, or maybe he was just kind of being flippant and maybe your position changes when you're actually in the role. But it'll be interesting, and I suspect that he would have had deep conversations with Levy, and they've come to some sort of agreement on that, because it is the one sticking point, I'd say, with every manager who will go into their doors at Tottenham Hotspur as long as Levy stays there. Plenty of reaction, as you can imagine. It's 23 minutes past 9 on this Wednesday morning. Todd Hellier, Spurs fan, says, I'm buying a Chelsea shirt if we buy Ibra. So am I think. Jimmy James Computer says, people don't change. Jose will never change. Todd has been in touch again to say no one will buy tickets to the new shopping centre if we keep losing. Fabian Marzouk says, no, so sad, bro. I thought that Pochettino is the best coach for Spurs. And Lewis says Ibra makes sense in inverted commas, to Jose Mourinho.
Like, don't get me wrong, when Mourinho comes in, there's going to be a change in their form. They're going to start winning more games.
Yes.
Because I think as good a job as Pochettino has done, I actually think probably was the time to move on. That doesn't make him a bad manager. We've seen this before. We think back to Klopp at Dortmund. Things were starting to irk him where his best players, he was losing them, and their form at the start of the season fell off a cliff. And he'd won a couple of league titles. That didn't mean that Klopp was a bad manager. Look what he's done since. So Pochettino is going to be in demand. I personally think the United job would be a better job from then the Real Madrid job, because he obviously be given more time. He knows the Premier League. Look, he knows the La Liga as well. But you know just how volatile that Real Madrid job is. That with United, they're at a certain level now where Pochettino would be given time to get them up to the next level. But Mourinho will turn it around short term for a while. But you just wonder, when will he fire the first shots at Levy? When will he? Who will he pick on first? Will he go straight for Unai Emery? Emery's having a tough time. That'll be an easy victim for Jose Mourinho. You know, you think of the 4th of December, Spurs go to Old Trafford. Will he run down the touchline? If Spurs score 22nd of December, Spurs at home to Chelsea.
Like the signing stuff is hilarious. Key Buckley's been in touch to say Matic to Spurs and Fellaini to Spurs. Yeah. It's just like, who's going to sign in January other than Ibrahimovic? Who's the biggest, tallest, lankiest midfielder that Jose Mourinho can possibly fit in beside Eric Dyer?
There's players there. Like, I can see the likes of Sissoko. He'll love him.
Yeah.
He'll like Dyer.
Who's he going to fall out with? Who's going to be the Luke Shaw?
I'll tell you something. It'll really sum up Jose Mourinho as like his personality if he falls out with someone like Heung-min Son. Like, how can you actually fall out with that guy?
Because he's gone off to do army service and play in the Asia Cup and all that sort of stuff.
He won't.
No commitment to the club.
He won't play left back for me. Yeah. I'm trying to think who's going to be the first one to fall out with. Yeah. A lot.
It's going to be Danny Rose.
Well, Danny Rose obviously has been quite vocal in the last few years, and more recently in the last week when he's basically saying, I'm not leaving. Like, you know, I'm going to see out my contract. So, yeah, it's, I don't know. I find it hard to be optimistic for Spurs in the case of, you know, they have this idea of what they are as a club and they've just completely ripped it up. Now, that's fine if Daniel Levy holds his hand up and say, do you know what? Things were going well under Pochettino. We got into the new stadium, but now it's time to change our approach. And if that's fine if they admit that, but you know, they're not going to be playing good football.
Unless Levy does read into this whole notion that what has Spurs won or whatever. Like, I personally think that's nonsense. I think that how far they've come is extraordinary, and Pochettino's done incredible things with the club. But maybe Levy's like, we actually do need a trophy, and what we're doing at the moment...
Is a League Cup good enough, though?
No. The answer is
Ramos
no.
won a League Cup.
I don't think Levy's stupid enough to get kind of blown away by this whole notion that Jose Mourinho will bring if they win the League Cup, saying, "I've won you a trophy. I'm a trophy-winning manager." How many of the last Spurs managers won trophies? I don't think he'll get carried away with that.
Jose would say it.
He would certainly say it if they managed to win the.
Obviously, he was standing over them when they did that statement, and they said Jose Mourinho's won 20 trophies as a manager, and he probably said, "Hey, lads, chalk out that 0. That's a 5. It's 25 trophies. That Community Shield, that was a trophy."
Right, so here's the takeaways from Phil Egan on Spurs. Eric Dyer to become hugely significant in a central role for Tottenham Hotspur. Troy Parrott to go out on loan. Ibrahimovic to be a Tottenham Hotspur player by the end of January.
Heung-min Son to play as an auxiliary left back.
He would actually be an okay left back, you know. He's
I saw Marcus Rashford play as an auxiliary right back before for United at Anfield. So, but those games, by the way, those games where Spurs play fellow Big Six contenders, they're now going to be awful.
Todd Hellier has been in touch to say Bale to Spurs. Does Bale, I guess, is he more or less likely to come now at this point? I would say perhaps less likely. Lewis says Levy is frugal, but the best way to make money as an owner is by winning. Jim says, listening to OTB AM, and I've counted 3 digs at Arsenal already by John Duggan. May I remind you that Arsenal are 6th and Spurs are 14th. That is right.
By the way, at least this rules out Mourinho to Arsenal, because that, like, whatever about the Mourinho to Tottenham, Mourinho to Arsenal would have been even worse. This is a guy that absolutely shat on Arsenal for years in terms of what he said about them, poked fun at them, and some Arsenal fans were actually saying, "Yeah, bring in Mourinho." I thought it was ludicrous. So I even think with Tottenham, like, Mourinho has poked fun at them before as a Chelsea manager. When the whole bus parking episode came up, that was about Spurs. So now he's gone in at Spurs and he will park the bus himself at times.
Yeah, it does. It feels extraordinary. Tottenham Hotspur, Jose Mourinho, Tottenham Hotspur manager. It doesn't seem right.
I'm obviously been covering it in bulletins this morning, and I'm still looking at it, just checking for typos. I'm thinking, is this real?
I'll tell you what. Maurizio Pochettino, Arsenal manager, make that happen. Everybody involved, make that happen. I think that's just a correct thing for football. That would be the most Spursy thing that's ever happened.
That would be great for Arsenal
to make things worse at Manchester United, and Maurizio Pochettino to bring Arsenal back to the Champions League.
Yeah, it's not going to happen though.
Give me some little bit of hope here this morning, Phil. Thank you very much for popping in.
No worries.
There'll be more on that on offtheball.com throughout the day. That is our lot from OTB AM this morning. More on the radio tonight. From 7 o'clock, make sure to click subscribe on YouTube, and you can join us here every morning on OTB AM from 7:30 AM. Tomorrow morning there'll be more reaction, I presume, from the Jose Mourinho news, football all the way through to the weekend, previewing the weekend's Premier League. And one more time before I leave you, Jose Mourinho is a Tottenham Hotspur manager. Good morning.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.